Good morning, everyone. My name is Awa. I'll be the MC of today. Very thankful today to be able to make these things happen. Today we have a very three esteemed speakers, Mr. Anthony Litty, Mr. Fudumian, and Mr. Obiuchi. And this event will not be able to happen without our sponsors. We have our main sponsors in Polyhedge, Fine Laminate Industries in Livelihoods, Tech Engineering, and our first sponsors, White Horse, Signify, and Program Solar. So, without further ado, I will pass the mic to our Honorary Secretary, Architect Romy for the welcome speech.
First time I'm not this.
Hi, a very good morning to everyone. So I'm Architect Romy. I'm Hon Secretary for Penn College Chapter. So first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to our speaker today, Architect Anthony Litty, Mr. Fu Junian, and Mr. Obiuchi, and thanks Architect Otaya for being our moderator today. And I also would like to extend my thanks to all the sponsors, our CPD Chairman, Architect Chung Pok Chong, and also our officials, ever officially Secretary Ms. Pat and Zuri for their contribution to this event. Thanks. And today's talk is Architect Seal report, so it sounds very serious. So actually it explores the legal responsibilities and liabilities architects face in their professions. So for your info, actually this event, the registrations actually very popular, and then all the seat was filled up very quickly. So this actually shows the recognitions among architects of the importance of understanding and adhering the legal aspect related to the work. So I believe today's talk will be very interesting and beneficial to all of us. So last, on behalf of Penn College Chapter, I would like to thank everyone for coming to today's event, and thank you very much for your continuous support. And I hope everyone enjoyed today's talk. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ms. Low. Next, I would like to invite our main sponsor, Ms. Christina Chan Irene from the Congress to do their presentation.
Hello, very good morning. I'm Christina from the company. Okay, before we start, I will show you a slide video first. This is about the company.
Quanh xin áo chị áo với
嗰啲位不佔一頭殼睇嘅。
你 special 好啊，我死。結果都吉影嘛，結果。
你玩死。
Okay. So, as you all can see in the video, the Bombay is going to be the first in region to offer cable coating construction solution. Okay. Okay, so of course everyone wants to have a crack-free home. Okay. So no worries for the years. So compatible total cooling and construction solution system is not just the finishing from the home page. Currently we do compare to finish. Okay. Also the construction trend in Malaysia. So we have urbanization and increase of housing needs. So particularly in the vertical development trend. Of course, changes of construction method in IDF trend. And then, of course, demand of better quality and aesthetic finishing for plastic. So under construction needs you want to have build to improve the quality and efficiency. Easy and convenience to weigh or handle materials and fuel and polish investment. So as well as current struggle in construction sites in Malaysia. Okay, so we have uncontrollable additive, we have consistent or mixing issues, messy job. Okay, of course, quality of sand will be different. Problems that we have to prevent from work delay and of course delay of projects and all. Okay, of course, we don't want to have all these unnecessary. Sorry for the mask. So we want to have reduce all this inefficiency. So we want to have a better efficiency in crack-free, fluorescence, okay, uneven or powdery wall, pillar pay, demolish or tar buckling. So we want to prevent from all these issues. So a bit of Nippon Paint. So Nippon Paint is one of the first coating manufacturer in Asia. Okay, so across 18 countries. As for the past 130 years, started off in Japan in 1881. Okay, so currently Nippon Paint is now the first in Asia Pacific. Okay, and globally number 4. Okay, In 2019, Nippon has already acquired Deluxe Group New Zealand and also Batik Group Turkey. And then in 2001, they acquired JB in Asia and Indonesia. Okay, so of course we started off in Singapore and then followed by Malaysia in 1967. So our iconic project across Asia, we have Nest Stadium Making, Sports Hub Singapore, Umeda Sky Building Osaka, and also our Lotus Temple New Delhi. So these are one of the few iconic places. So our brand confidence and recognition, of course we have CXP Best Customer Experience Award, we have Reader's Digest Trusted Brand Award, okay, and then of course our journey to total coating and construction solution. So, okay, a bit on beyond coding. So in 2020, Nippon has acquired Sally's, Australia. And then in 2021, they have acquired BTEC. And in 2022, they have acquired CMI, one of the third largest dry mix. Okay, so from now, we actually cover a holding called Total Coating and Construction Solution. So from architectural coating to waterproofing, to dry mix mortar, to sealant, to flooring, to protective coating, Nippon can cover all. Okay, so a bit of the construction side. Okay, so compatible system solution. Okay, you can see we have two varieties here. One is bare wall, so from bare finish, from brick laying until the paint. So meaning your plastering, your skin coating is all under one roof by Nippon also. That inclusive of color adhesive for floorings and wall also, we do supply. So these are some of the drawings that we normally have. Okay, so for skin coating now is coloring. Waterproofing also. So of course, if let's say you never do it right from start, you have like wrinkled kind of wall or uneven wall. Okay, so with proper way of doing, you will have a very even shaped wall. So all this can be prevented. Okay, we also have products that can prevent from efflorescence and also buckling issues. Okay, together with waterproofing issues also. So these are the buckling issues. So that's all from my presentation. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you, Ms. Christina. If you guys have any further questions, feel free to visit our booth outside during the break time. Sorry, a bit of a technical glitch. Next, we would like to invite our second main sponsor from Foreign Laminates Industries in Durian Berhad to do their presentation, Mr. Darren Wang and Ms. Joy Gu.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having the opportunity to invite us for this short speak for our company regarding financial industries in the US. Okay. Our company founded in the years 1999. We have 24 years experience in the manufacturing of radiant barriers and refractive installations. Our factory located in Penang, and we have one sales office in the Sunway, Selangor. In fact, we have sold more than about 100 million meter lengths over the years. We are the member of refractive insulation manufacturing of the Malaysian RIM. It's under the umbrella of FMM. And we have awards for Asian Pacific Entrepreneurship Award 2016. In fact, we have the two product range. One is the roofing installations. We have bubble refracting installations, high quality craft paper foil, polymer foil, woolen foil, eco grease, and foam foil. Below is an 8 bubble, foil, tech foil, red foil, matte foil, ultra foil, and acoustic thermal foil. This is all our blend. Number two is we have the turn seal. With the air conducting installations, telecommunications, thermal installation, and medical. For projects reference, we have not a lot of projects reference, but I cannot space here. We are doing supply to the high technology semiconductor factory, SMI, commercial lots, government buildings, warehouse and logistics, transport hub, residential education, healthcare center like hospital, community and cultural, sport recreation, and others. This is our international market, so in fact we have exported to many countries in the world. Benefit of installation roof is the improved comfort through the infrared reflective property, energy savings, reduced energy consumption, save electrical cost, sustainability, and health risk. Okay, Element 5 have two types. One is the radiant barrier and reflective insulation. What is the difference of these two? Radiant barrier is a material with a low emittance surface. When it's facing an open space, it's defined as a radiant barrier system. Reflective insulation, a thermal insulation system consisting one of more low emittance surface, bonded one or more enclosed air space with measurable R. This is under the MS2 July 5 definitions. Okay, for Element 5 have two types. One is a single-sided and double-sided. These are all the certifications for domestic authority certification. We have CIDB, BOMBA certification for Class O, and we have Series ES 476, 6 and 7 certifications, and Series MS2 July 5 certificates. For green certification, we have a Series Eco Label and My Hijau, as well as a green page donation. International certification, we have the from TUV certificate and CSTB M1 from Germany. These actually My Hijau certificates. Those who are using for the, if considered as a green building, they can grant for the green investment tax allowance under the part. Now because we are thanks to these green buildings, from the JKR guidebooks, we know our green product scoring system. In fact, there's JKR has encouraged clause 7.1.1. Is environmental friendly material of green product that are certified under the Series Eco label. certification of any label under the global eco-label and world gen certificates. Just now we have the eco-label for our two products. And product registered under the MyHijab mark scheme. I invite my colleagues Joey or present from the RTTV's calculations.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Joey from Foil Laminate Industries in Edmonton. Let's talk about roof thermal transmitter value today. According to UBBL Clause 38A, number 2, all type building roof, lightweight roof have to achieve CPU value 0.4 and 0.6 for heavy roof. But state authority is empowered to decide whether to adopt this amendment. This clause is under MS 1525. In 2019, this distinction between lightweight and heavy was revised. Maximum new value is 0.4 for non-concrete roof and 0.6 for concrete roof. These are the summary of the changes. I didn't go into detail due to the time constraint. Use of both mask and refractive technology is encouraged. And right hand side is the relationship of KRU. For radius period and refractive insulation, thermal resistance is expressed in terms of total R value. Refractive insulation and radiant barrier are based on a composite system or assembly to derive R. They are comprising of a low emissivity and high reflectance value with surface property. Refractive insulation relies on the low conductivity of A space bounded and adjacent to the low E surfaces, while radiant barriers relies on large ventilated spaces, for example, an attic space. Combination of mask insulation and refractive insulation or radiant barrier is recommended. Radiant barrier are generally evaluated in terms of reduced heat flux. Let's take a look at the RSI value for a radiant barrier bounded by a steel airspace. In this example, a radiant barrier is applied to element 4. Its low E surface property is bounded by a 75 mm deep airspace created by rafter and plasterboard object. The RSI of the air spaces and active spaces are referring to the guidebooks published by the Green Working Committee and GBI. Source from the SNZ 4859 up to. Finding the proper RSI value from the table will be affected by several factors. First, low emissivity values. Second, roof angle, and third, airspace depth. Okay. Back to the previous example. The E value of the radiant barriers applied in the system is 0.05. Okay. So we refer to table A. This is table A2. Roof angle 5 degree and having a 75 mm thick airspace. So we got the RSI value 1.136. Now, let's look at the RSI value of a refractive insulation with both surfaces bounded by a steel airspaces. In this example, a big bubble foil is applied to element 4, which provided an RSI value of 0.3155. As both surfaces emit thermal value as low than 0.03, the 25 mm deep low E airspace on top provides 0.766, and the bottom 75 mm provides 1.319 RSI value. Okay. Airspace RSI value derived from the earlier mentioned table. So we check with the respective manufacturer for individual RSI and immittant value for reflective insulation products. And let's go on to example on a radiant barrier bounded with an attic space. 11.6. The attic space is a low heat radiation space due to the application of radiant barrier. And the space is naturally ventilated through a certain opening ratio. Through these factors, we can get the RSI value of the attic space from this table E. So the value is 1.36. All three examples are shown with ceilings. Now, let's look at some roofing system without ceiling and achieving U value of 0.4. This example using a combination of both mask and refractive technology. A layer commonly used 50 mm thick stone wool plus a layer of thick bubble foam. The sum of the RSI of all material plus the interior low EF film is able to meet the requirement of 0.4 U value. If the big bubble foam is changed to a radiant barrier woven board, the thickness of the mask insulation needs to be increased to at least 75 mm to meet the requirement. The external airflow RSI value 0.04, source from Australia New Zealand standard 4859 also. The internal airflow referred to table 15, horizontal setting. Heat flows downwards. RSI value affected by IR reflective on non-IR reflective. Okay, that's all my presentation for today. If you have any doubts, you may come to our booth later for clarification. Thank you.
I just want to have some of these regarding consideration just now to be able to increase your presentation. In fact, in the market, there's some of the people that maybe they don't really understand the calculation because this involves a new type of calculation. And we would like to, for example, just now we refer to the AS standard, actually it's referred by GBI Malaysia. And if you do have any of the doubts or calculations, you can always contact us then for clarification, and we are willing to help you to solve all this problem. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joey and Darren. Next, we would like to invite our next sponsor, Beam Engineering Solution and Technologies in Livelihoods, also known as Clytech Engineering, and their presenter will be IR Edward Han Yang Huang.
Hello, Christy. Hey, good morning, everyone. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Pam Northern Chapter to giving us the opportunity to come here to introduce our company. So basically, Clytech, actually goes back 24 years. We are actually specialized in three fields. One is construction method engineering, where we manufacture IBS frameworks, and we provide full engineering solutions to our clients in terms of IBS framework for all the structural elements. And we also, 24 years ago, we actually started with Sulu Swasta, where we actually supply all construction materials out to finishing product, engineered fencing, anti-climb fencing, finishing good tiles, and so on. And today, I will focus more on Clytech Engineering. We are actually provide IDD, integrated digital delivery, using BIM solutions. So you can see from there, we are actually based in Penang. Our office is actually in Borealis Commercial Park, Batukawan, and we have office in Puchong, Selangor, and also this JB doing a lot of Singapore projects, and we also have offices in the Philippines. And you can see we use various kind of software. Yeah, BIM is not just about Revit, it's actually a lot more than that, and we also use CDE, and we also have a LiDAR scanners. Later I'll share with you one video where we actually use LiDAR scanner to capture a digital as-view of TRX. If you talk about BIM, a lot of people only talk about BIM is like 3D. Actually, BIM is a lot more than that. BIM is about collaborations, how we share information across entire build and set life cycles among different stakeholders. So the process and the standardizations of how we collaborate is important. And our company is actually ISO 19650 Part 1 and Part 2 certified. Okay. So these are some of the projects we do. As you can see, I think these are semicon projects and also hospitals that we do, and mostly actually is in Penang, and even the hospital also is the one in Sungai Petang. And of course, we also do commercial projects. And we also do infrastructures and also government projects as well as PVVC. Look at the bottom right corner, that's PVVC. I think Singapore, they emphasize about prefabricated, pre-finished volumetric constructions, where they basically manufacture building in the factories and then they send it to site to install. So these are some of the examples. Just 10 minutes I try to show you. These are, we do architectures, we do structures using different BIM software, we even model reinforcements. And this is the overall, some of the models that we do, just to give you a snapshot. So basically, what I would say our companies in BIM, we are actually all engineers. We are from the construction field as well, because it's not just modeling. We are actually virtual builders, but we cannot build this just by ourselves. We work very closely with designers, we work very closely with contractors, subcontractors. We are using the new technologies and process to facilitate the delivery of the projects. The whole aim is to try to build twice, build virtual, make sure everything fits, solve all the problems as much as we can before we actually do the physical construction inside. So these transitions, there will be challenges, but if we work together closely, definitely we can overcome these kind of challenges. So this I actually show you the underneath the base floor. I actually hide the project names because we sign NDA with the clients. So these are some of the plant rooms, underground services, infrastructure works. So how do we translate this BIM model to site? We need to somehow, at this current transition stage, we still need to transform the models into 2D drawings, combined services drawings, coordinated drawings, or even shop drawings, to facilitate the constructions inside. So from there, you see, you get this kind of combination drawings and coordinated drawings. So the contractors who may not have access to BIM model, what they can do is they look at the setting out, they know how to run their services, what kind of things. We can also do town setting out. These are actually residential projects. The town setting outs, everything is from the BIM models. These are infrastructure works, these are actually TRX. This one is actually Penang projects. This one we work with the manufacturer of the pipes. These are actually fabrication drawings. And these are big pipes, 800 mm, 600 mm pipes. These drawings are generated directly from BIM model, and these drawings are actually sent to the fabricator in Singapore. They prefabricated the pipe and they sent to Penang, and then they assemble 60 meter and then they install. So you can actually facilitate prefabrication off-site to save your construction time. You can see these are actually reinforcement. We can even generate bar building schedules, and then you can actually do prefabrication off-site. These are jobs in KL. They have limitations on the site. So basically, we work with Southern Steel, and we come up with the bar building schedule from the model directly. So like I said, you build twice. You build virtual, make sure everything can fit, solve all the problems, and then when you do constructions, then you can cut short issues. You can actually avoid surprises, arguments, and so on and so forth. This is actually TRX. So you can see the models on the left and then the sites on the right. And this LiDAR, this is actually one of the facilities in KL. I think nowadays a lot of buildings, they want to become smart. So what is a fundamental? First, you need to digitize your asset first. Then you can put in more information about your assets. So we actually use our LiDAR scanner to scan. We actually have one outside, we can have a look. So basically this is like non-tilted lights. When you use tilted light, you basically look at one point, right? Then that point is actually accumulated in the geological space. LiDAR is once you scan, you get billions of points. And that billion of points are actually geo-referenced, and you can use it to do digital models. I'll show you a video. So this actually is some of our clients. It is not one person's job, it's everybody's. It's a difficult process. There will be challenges, but we are happy that our clients managed to realize some benefits. I always tell our clients, when you want to start big, you cannot start to want to capture all the benefits. You have to plan a 5-year, 6-year roadmaps, and then incrementally you realize the benefits step by step. So I'll play a video. I think this is TRX. Okay. So the model you're going to see is all created based on actual field point cloud data we collect inside. We are not even provided with one SPL drawings. The SPL drawings was not accurate. So that's why we come in to recreate a digital twin of the infrastructure for TRX. We model out the tunnels, the underground ductworks, and the TME ductworks. So these LiDAR scans. Once you scan, you get a 3D photometric view. So you know MRT, how do they look at the progress in the flying drone? Because some area can access, so you get this kind of things. You can use it to monitor your progress, look at the quality. So this is point clouds. These are actually billions of errors. Okay, this is the LiDAR scanner, so you need to set up your stations. Yeah, bit by bit. So for the point clouds, you use it as a reference, you put in your models, you remove your point clouds, and you get your new models. So it's not just about graphical. So this whole thing is actually built without a single piece of experience. It's all based on actual information collected from site. And you have to understand these are geologically referenced accurate positions. Because our infrastructure need to link to other buildings, other being modeled done by others. We actually won an award from this from PAM actually. PAM Architects 2021 for this job. 2 awards actually. So these are actually the TMB. They have about 1 over kilometer TMB ductworks underneath the ground level because the lands are very expensive in TRX. So you can see some of the sound insulation panel, architecture panel on the walls are actually not finished. It's because when we scan the work is not finished. Yeah. So AECOM, everybody are happy. In fact, TRX are actually asking for a new budget to beam out the whole area right now. So again, it's not just about graphical. The important thing is you want to get a digital twin, you want to have informations, you want to fill up your asset information so that you can use the information to facilitate facility management and asset management. So you can see these are the models, these are the site that you scan. In fact, one of the joint binary, as we do big model, how do you verify the block site? We actually scan, compare the point cloud with the models. Yeah. Then it becomes difficult for the subcontractors. Yeah, because then you can actually check whether they are following the models. So it's a transition, you know. So next, we also do IBS homework, all kinds of homeworks. Okay. If you see the one, you see the ply tag in the high rise. That's actually very popular in KL. All the high rises, 30 floors, 30 and above, you don't need the regulator to tell you to do it. The developer will do it. You can see there are a lot up in the skyline in KL. Why? Because basically this can speed up the work. You know, in typical residential buildings in KL, they can actually do the home, they can cast the wall and the slab, put in all the admin services, even do the external finishing within 7 days. 7 days is very common. Some can do even longer compared to 5 days. They can do very fast. Why developer want to do it? Because if you imagine 1 week you go up, you can claim additional because you also do the finishing. Yeah, I think if I not remember correctly, it's actually, I think they can claim 2E, another 10% of the external architecture work. So basically what you do, you compress the structure together with the architecture work. Yeah, you no more relying on scaffolding and then netting, no more. Yeah, so it's actually industry driven. In fact, there's going to be the first one from our company in Penang. It's at the Light by IJM. Yeah, so I'll share with you this. There are a lot of ideas for solution there. We have a booth outside. If you have time, actually come with us. So these are some of the projects that they actually use SAP. You don't need PBKL wherever when you push developer or want to use it. But the bottom line is your typical flow has to be more than 30 stories. Then it's the same price as scaffold and everything. So typically it's 4.5 story. Bottom 2 story do architecture work, top 2 story do structure. This is my last slide. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Edward. Next, without wasting further time, I would like to invite Mr. Ao Tai Yao. He will be the moderator of today to do the introduction to all our speakers. Thank you, Mr. Ao.
We're actually running out of time, so I will try to keep the intro short. Today's seminar actually will discuss a lot of issues that are facing architects right now. Projects become more complex, we have more players, we have more subcontractors coming into the picture, and as such, we have more conflict with the construction industry. So today we have 3 speakers. The first speaker is Anthony Lee from Architect Center, and second will be Mr. Fu Junliang. He's a partner from Gang Partnership, a firm that specializes in construction-related dispute. And then thirdly, we'll have Mr. Ong Yu, who is the managing partner from the Chambers of Yushin Ong. So Anthony will cover on issues on Kisabana, disputes arising from building defects. Junliang will dive into issues related to introduction of statutory adjudication by SIPA and impact on architects, from waiving professional fees to getting sued. Then Yushin will cover law and case studies on professional liability of architects towards clients and third parties. Also case laws and case studies on fee collection for registered and, what forbid, unregistered architects, as well as architectural consultant practices. So without further ado, I would like to invite him to give his talk. Thank you. Questions, please take note. After every speaker, you answer questions. So write down. If you are nervous about asking, get the paper, get the question passed to you, and we'll follow it up. Thanks.
Hello, Penang. Good morning. I had a wonderful dinner last night. we have to switch off with our data is off. Thank you for having us. I think I look forward to come to Penang every time to do CDD courses or anything because I enjoy the company here and also the food here. So last night, thank you very much, and I hope today we will be able to bring more information to you. We'll try to put things in context for you, because like it or not, it is a very much part of our industry. It is a very adversarial situation. You as the architect, as the SO, basically you are the judge actually at the site. You're doing it every day. Only difference is that now if you go to court or you go for arbitration, somebody else is doing that, then now you become the contractor or you become the other parties, which sounds scary. So I think when we say architects see you in court, it can sound, I see you in court, or I say, see you in court. So I think I just want to take it in the right context today. All right, so to me, just relax and just enjoy the rest of the slides. Now, Ao Tayao was saying that the complexity of projects today. Now you can see, like in Penang, they're no different from KL. The projects are getting complicated. The strata projects, the land is getting more expensive. You're going to get all the 3-in-1, 4-in-1, all the different types of projects that you're getting into. So this is some projects here you can see from normal bungalows to terrace houses. Today we get this kind of complex project. And I think in Penang we got like projects like the light and all these other projects that are so amazing because you got other issues as well with the ocean issues. So in commercial projects, it's the same. Shop houses to strata offices to our very iconic Merdeka 118. You can see it's a mixed component. And I think our Tech also showed some very good photographs showing the TRX as well, just to show you the intensity and the complexity of the projects. And these projects are not all done in one start date and one end date. It is many start dates and many end dates by many people over many years in the same site. And they don't only work on the floor, from the ground up, they go from the ground down, they go from the underground up, and then they even go from the sky up and sideways and so forth, doing flyover bridges and things like that. So this is the complexity, So we have to face it that we're no longer doing simple projects. And because of that, architects tend to feel that, look, things don't change. In fact, in all projects today, architects take a very different role. So the traditional employer-client PEM form has changed. Okay? Many of you know I wear many hats as a contractor for a large public business company. If I get 10 tenders for this month to tender, I will say PEM form is only one. The other 9 are totally different forms of contract. And even the PEM form that we tender using is all molested. Change the term that as an architect you don't even recognize it. So these traditional methods have changed now to the new norm. We get all these kind of different types of contracts. Are you ready? In fact, it's already here. Like it or not, you are either going to play a small part of it or you're going to play a big part of it. Are you going to get into it or are you going to avoid it? So, the ones in red, as you see, we've always dealt with barang contracts. What are barang contracts? If you have followed my series of sessions, barang contracts are contracts that have been done one-sided. That means no matter what you do, somebody else will kena job. So those are the kind of contracts we see today. But many times, even architects, you enter into a barang contract with your customer, with your developer. Payment at the end of the project, this and that. Sorry, any developers here today? Yeah, okay. Any lawyers? Oh shit, there's 2 speakers. Sorry. How many engineers are there today? Oh, good. No engineers. Yeah, I heard from Casey that this talk was taken up, the 100 seats was taken up in an hour. Okay, so I've taken the trouble to put up this flow chart to tell you this is the traditional way you are involved and how disputes can happen. You start with the property developer, the green one at the top there, okay? You'll see here it starts with this. And then this is the builder, which is the contractor. And then from here, the consultants are normally engaged there, right? Traditionally. And then you will use some form of a contract here. And then in some instances, when you do EPCC contracts at turnkey, the consultants are engaged by the builder. But in any case, you still got nominated subcontractors and direct subcontractors. So you will have different forms of contracts here. And then on this side, if you're doing housing projects, you're gonna get your sales and purchase agreements in which architects you will administer that part of the work as well, right? You'll be doing certifications. And then from here, it comes down to when the projects are completed, especially for strata, where you then having to indirectly deal with strata owners because of you sign off the stage completion of their housing position. So you hold many roles in this entire spectrum. I don't think this is anything new to you all, but putting it together as a context, this should be in the part 3 slide, right? Part 3 exam slide. To tell you, look, this is actually your scope. Now, it becomes interesting that this is the lifespan of the disputes, okay? Now, between the property developer and the builder, this is the type of defects, type of disputes that we find. So I think Julian and Yushin, you will cover some of these areas. Time and cost, EOT, LAD, LND, loss and expense, CPA, and set-off and defects. Now look, these are fairly legal terms. I'm not going to dive too much into it because I think the other speakers will move into those things. But these are the common narratives that you will need to know and hope to take away from this seminar, okay, which is issues to do with time and cost. Most disputes are related to time and cost, okay? And then you have the other one, which is between the builder and the NSC and subcontractor, which often you guys say, "Oh, I'm not involved." That one is further down the track, but you will be dragged in, okay? Then you have the other ones where it's between the property developer and the purchasers. You know that, right? A lot of people, the hammer guy, the Uncle Tom, he go and bang the floor in KL, right? And in Penang, I'm sure you guys have done many housing projects where you get all the list of defects and then the developer gets into trouble with the purchasers, okay? Then the other one will be, of course, between the purchasers and their own strata owners and vendors, okay? Why I put this in, later I'll tell you, okay? The other one will, of course, this is where most of you thought that you come from today's session, is to only deal with the relationship between property developer and you. You think that just that narrow section of errors and omissions, it's not. You are going to be dragged in for the entire spectrum of what I'm showing here today. Okay? And then the other one, of course, if you are the consultants under the builders. So these are the spectrum of disputes that I'm putting up today. Okay? Now, traditionally, this is what happens. You got one architect, you got one main contractor, and you got clock works. So you got one pair of eyes, or very few number of pair of eyes that run the job, and you build 1,000 apartments or houses and things like that. But today, after you hand over, you're gonna get a lot more eyes looking at all the defects. Homeowners, mother-in-law, the father-in-law, the uncle, and many of these uncles and mother-in-laws will hire building surveyors to come and do the stickers. Correct? How many of you have had your projects with 200 stickers for one apartment unit? You got one there, yeah? Only one? Come on. I'm sure you guys seen that the building surveyors have gone out of control. And they are using classic benchmarking to reject a lot of the work with tiles and plastering and things like that. Okay, so you are being dragged in now because I'll show you Uncle Thor there. Because the property developers tend to market themselves with all of these things branding, GBI lah. Then they put on the signboard, holding, plastic lah, Compass and all the other things they go for to do branding. So they create themselves as a very top-notch quality developer. But on your project, you're choosing the cheapest contractor. Right? Did you specify that the contractor needs to follow certain standards other than your specification? Did you say that you have to follow it? If you didn't specify that, then but the developer is advertising it that way, there is a mismatch of expectations. So that's when people get angry. So if you're running project and you see this kind of situations, you got to immediately speak up that what I, as the architect and the engineer, specified in this project is this benchmarking. The quality has been accepted by you and the contractor at this benchmark. But then somebody later, at the sales office says, oh, we are this kind of project. You get what I'm trying to say? Yeah. And then when the surveyors come along, okay, well, this is your S&P, but your S&P says this. Your S&P says this. Main entrance, it says quality lock sets. The word quality lock sets. Here it says quality lock sets and ironmongery to all doors. You guys know all this, right? What is quality? Good quality or bad quality? So the word quality is so vague, but it's an S&P. This is a legal document. And you signed on it, and you were part of this thing. So that's why even the book was written, chapter 8 just on defects. Specifically, this book was written, this is a very new book. The author, Yang Arif Hong Fong, is going to use this book as a textbook in USM. Hopefully, that will just create more lawyers to sue you all. Okay, so defects have become a new area of disputes today, not just on cost and time, but defects have now become an issue. Okay, so if you guys have access, maybe upon pen of the chapter, you get access to this book, and circulate this chapter about what constitutes defects and what cases are there. So I've highlighted this one here on the current QLASIC issues. Now this is basically the current relationship that you have, okay? You have a pen form of contract, you specify the materials and so forth, and then from there, you award it to the main contractor and to the developer. Housing developer will sign a sales and purchase agreement with the purchaser. So from here then, you issue CPC, right? When do you issue CPC? When you feel that the project is completed by the main contractor, right? But there is another milestone called the vacant possession, right? So when is vacant possession? Vacant possession occurs after CPC. So that narrow period, when you get CPC, you want to issue CCC so that you can issue vacant possession, is a very narrow band of period, right? And the developer is pushing you to issue CCC because why? Got LED coming along for the purchasers and so forth. So that period, the green period, is really only the time that the CIDB under QLASIC allows the QLASIC inspector to come into your building to do the assessment. Under CIDB QLASIC. Did you know that? Okay, if the projects are done. And that scoring is only given to the main contractor or to you or to the developer, depending who is doing it. It's an internal document at the site project. It is not available to the purchaser. Correct? Do you put in the S&P to say sales and purchase agreement, QLASIC score 80 points? Does it say that? You don't say it. You just say quality lock sets. So you understand the difference now of a whole bunch of people expecting something very good, but you are doing something different. Okay? So then now the developer's DLP period is there, and then the end period of CMGD and so forth. So now what happens is that when you hand over the houses to the purchasers now, the purchaser hire the third-party building surveyors to come and put the 200 stickers on your project. And then they put this report, then the housing purchaser sends it back to the property developer and it goes to tribunal. It goes to tribunal, KPKD. So you guys get dragged in, and then the developer says, architect, is this a defect or not? Has anybody been asked to do that in Penang? No one. Oh, you are about here. I must set up my building surveyors business here. So So that this is in KL. Many property developers today are very upset about it. Contractors are upset about it. Architects are upset about it because the third-party assessor is coming in and offering their opinion. So I have actually, through Al Tayal, when we were in Town Council, doing under PPC, we issued this practice note. I hope that they have distributed to all the participants yesterday. Okay, so please read this because it empowers you now through PAN as a practice note to tell you, look, take this position if you get a 200 sticker report arriving at your table. Okay? Right, this is one of the areas talking about latent defects. I think I'm not going to dive too much into it because I think the lawyers are going to likely do. Maybe Julian or Lucian, will somebody cover this? You could, right? Okay, yeah. Huh? Okay, thanks. This is actually about the condominium built by E&O in one of the first projects one of the very high-end projects in CC. And the residents, the MC, took them to court because of issues with the swimming pool and the open deck as far as defects are concerned. So, and it was a novel judgment. So I'm going to let Julian deal with this later. Okay, this has a huge impact because the architect and the engineer was asked to come to court. Okay, about the waterproofing and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to circulate these slides later, so don't worry about taking the photograph. Now, this is a picture of that property after the lawsuit and the MC won as far as repairing the swimming pool is concerned. So this was the process of the repair. As you can see, the whole swimming pool had to be stripped out. And here I'm taking the pictures with the council that represented the MC. Okay? So this was the contractor is the one wearing the blue shirt, doing the repair on behalf of the MC. Okay, so now if we talk about defects, the most important thing, as you all know, we always need to find out the root cause of the defect, right? And how is relevant to today's session about seeing you in court, or how to avoid going to court. Is it to do with your design, your specifications, or is it to do where you commonly architects blame the contractor for workmanship, or is it to do with maintenance or lack of maintenance? So this is, I'm going to run through with you many slides today, okay, very quickly about the three categories where it's to do with design, workmanship or maintenance, whether who is actually at fault. And I want you all to be very honest today, just by taking up your hand and saying, look, 1, 2, or 3, okay? I just want you to say, look, whether his fault or my fault or their fault. Then you have an idea about how, if you get called up to court or there is a report, fault finding, root cause is extremely important, okay? Okay, now we're going to jump into leaks and cracks, okay, on waterproofing, which I think everybody's favorite topic, okay? RC roofing, bathrooms, swimming pools, open landscape, construction movement joints, and so forth. Okay, so this is a flat roof, okay? Can you see that there's cracks on it? And I can tell you it's leaking down to the floor below. So, is it number 1, number 2, or number 3? Can I have a quickly show of hands? Number 1, how many? You see, only 2, 3 people say it's design issue. Number 2, workmanship. Wow, I see all blame the contractor. Number 3, maintenance. This is a maintenance issue. Okay, so you see, kind of even, but design architects don't take any blame. Okay, so this one, RC flat roof. 10 years later, or 20 years later, you see this situation. Is this design? 1. 2, is it workmanship? Is it 3? Is it maintenance? Yeah, okay, so quite clear, right? Maintenance? Yeah. So these are some pictures showing underneath that picture of the first picture, infrared picture showing the leaking coming down. So this is, you can see that infrared, we use infrared to pick up leaks and so forth. You can see the leaks coming from the top, coming down to the floor. Okay? So looking at this situation here, you guys have probably seen they use PU grouting from the bottom to fix up and things like that. So with this problem, is it design? Is it workmanship? Or is it a maintenance issue? Come on, just yell out. Huh? Oh. Okay. Another one. Underneath the same slab or underneath that same slab that when I saw the roof on top, I'm now going below, and I'm seeing cracks like this. Okay, I'm seeing cracks. I'm taking the measurements. As you can see, a lot of the cracks are beyond 0.4 mm. Concrete cracks. But this 0.4 mm or beyond is not structural in nature, but they are there, and water is coming through. So now you start thinking differently, right? About the leaks. So whose fault is it now? Is it design? Or workmanship? So you start to realize that it's not so straightforward anymore to establish actually what is the root cause of the leakage. Is it to do with maintenance, design, and things like that? Because often when we study issues with leaks, right, you have to really dive into it. Okay? So these are some of the issues that we face because many times you say the PU injection goes here, but you don't know where it goes because the source of the crack could be somewhere else. Now, why do I mention about crack? Because many times when engineers put, say, the admixture into the concrete to make it waterproof, okay, I'm using the simple word waterproof, and they say, look, no problem now, the whole concrete is waterproof. I don't need to put membrane on the top. Now it's everything inside the concrete. I'm sure you've heard all over the years the difference. But if you read the fine print, you see this fine print here. It says here it can seal cracks up to 0.4 only. So if you go underneath there and you measure the cracks, it is 0.4 plus 0.5, 0.6. It's very, very fine. That means the waterproofing doesn't work anymore. So who's at fault now? Is it the contractor?
Yeah.
Huh? Engineer. Yeah, but engineer report to you. You are the lead consultant. So therein lies our silo thinking. Oh, engineer do concrete. Architect, waterproofing or not? Yes, but I don't do waterproofing for here. I only do waterproofing for toilets. Swimming pool, maybe I don't do. Plant box, maybe I don't do. So how do you, as architects and engineers, delineate your responsibility when both of you are asked to go to court and answer this?
Actually,
Right? Yes.
the concrete is not supposed to crack.
Ah, correct. But who designed the concrete?
Not me.
Okay, so that's why it's very important for one to understand that even for this one point, I'm sure you guys have seen this thing here, even the dosage for different countries is different. For the same project, for the same product, for the same performance, they say that in Australia, you can use 0.8 to 1.2 dosage. But in other countries, you have to use 2 to 3%. So what does it mean? So one country allows it to be less, another country will, no, cannot, you have to use more for the same situation. But our engineers chose the most valued engineer. The QS will tell you that, the contractor will tell you, I'm going to go use 0.8. And these issues are found in Penang. These issues are found in Penang because we have investigated and a lot of this information are from our inspections in Penang. Okay? Just to let you know, so I've put up some of these links here for you all to have a look. Okay? So this is what you get finally at the bottom. If you get all of these cracks, I think Nippon had shown you some of those pictures as well. So identifying the root cause is very important. Okay? Before you can then decide, finally you're going to take responsibility or somebody else will be responsible. Okay? So PU grouting, these are some of my projects where I'm the main contractor, where I use this dosage, and then I got a defect inspection form, and then I got my retention to be held. And I had to do all this PU grouting, and then I realized when I investigated that the consultants didn't specify this particular product. I used it, but the cracks are beyond 0.4. So I defended myself. And then they all started looking at the architect and the engineer. And then architect and engineer went and looked at the contractor again, then looked at Everybody. So at the end of the day, man, the matter has now been resolved. But I'm saying that this is how you get dragged in. Okay? So PU grouting in your project, the one that foam grouting from the bottom, this is one project that I did. This is the project that went for the one that I told you, the Dua residence. 2012. Can you see that the leaves are here? And then they did the PU grouting. Of course, they put a drip pan here because they couldn't resolve it, right? Then later on in 2018, the leads just kept on moving because they kept on injecting. The lead just keep moving and moving and moving over the years. So it doesn't solve the problem. You have to address it from the top, which is the picture I showed you just now. You have to report the whole swimming pool. Okay? The other one would be issues to do with pipe penetration. We all know that from the first picture, there's plenty of services, electrical services, pipe, sewage pipe, and pipe. So these are the cause of leaks around the pipes. So if you don't detail this, if you don't pay attention to this detail, as a designer, as a specifier, you will get leaks coming down. So you may be also part of the design that you do take care of. Okay? Then this one is another one. The whole roof has got this water ponding during the rain. So I took this picture during rain. Now who's responsible? Is it a design issue? Is it workmanship or is it maintenance? You know, this roof got no fall. The falls are there, but very little. And the rainwater downpipe is only this side. So the first 2 to 3 hours after the rain, the whole roof is flooded. Then only slowly, you know, it's actually like a retention pond now. Okay. Okay, another one. You got M&E rooms, electrical rooms, and then you put pipes on top. Can you see this? These are the pipes and what's below here. So that pipe breaks, that pipe leaks, that pipe has issues. These will cause an explosion in the room and loss of use of this building. So think about these things as I'm putting it to you, right? About trying to see what you can do as architects and your team. Same thing here. This is a room that belongs to a power generation company. Okay? This is all the huge tanks, and you can see here all the water pipes up here. And they then have to put in all the tarpaulin to close it up, and then now they're putting scaffolding to try and put some form of a barrier on the top. Okay, so obviously below you're going to get concrete spalling and so forth. Okay, so this is the reworks of the swimming pool that I meant to you. And when you see the top, after the tiles have been removed, you can see all the cracks on top of the concrete slab. So these are all the cracks on top of the concrete slab. So in this case, it was quite clear that they had issues with the concrete of the swimming pool. Okay? So now you have to then only lay the new, repair all these cracks, relay the new waterproofing, relay the new tiles. So one thing that I like to carry out to you on this particular message is BS8110 and BS8007. Please Google it, the difference between these two. You guys are not structural engineers. But as architects, you must understand the difference between these two BS standards when they use to design concrete. Okay? So do your homework, raise the questions to your Penn Model chapter. I'm happy to answer these questions either through emails or through future seminars. So this roof was designed open. It couldn't stop the leak. They have repaired it 3 times. Eventually, the owners spent and built a brand new roof on top of this roof. That means they had to seal off the whole roof. So who paid for that new roof? Okay. Another issue when you design waterproofing for toilets are kickers. Most architects don't design kickers. You don't even draw it on your drawing. Because what happens is that now normally the brick just comes all the way down. And you know that the waterproofing you turn up now is turning up against the brick and mortar. It doesn't work. So these are the little things that are important for you all to start changing your detailing in your office. Okay? So this is how a good water pond testing. But in this project, I was the main contractor. I asked the waterproofing supplier to give me the waterproofing with some color. He said, why you want color? I said, because my cloud work is blind. My cloud is lazy. I want to be able to color it so that I can see the waterproofing has been done. Is it a, architects, I'm sure you can select your own color. I've selected blue, so please find another color. Right? Do you think this is helpful to you? Just to specify the waterproofing as a color. Even if you hack it later on in damage, you can see that it's been damaged, and blue has been damaged. The simple things that you can do. Okay? Alright, I'm going to move on to tiles and hollowness and debonding. What's the time like? Sorry, louder? 10 more minutes. Okay, I'm going to go faster. So everybody talks about tiling, debonding here. Okay, so if you can see, all these issues that we do investigation, I am so supportive of what Nippon shared with you today about total solutions. I've gone and done some talks with them as well. Is that on-site mix must stop. Because in Malaysia, we are so used to allowing the sand to be brought to site, and then it has to be mixed on site. You cannot control that quality. This is what you get. And as you know, all this site mix is very inconsistent. And it will result in all kinds of problems for your screeding, for your tiling works, for your plastering, for your mortar. Why do all this? Do you know how strict our structural engineers are when it comes to concrete? What do they have? Design mix, trial mix, they have cube tests, they have slump tests at site, right? And then they go for 7-day the cube test, 14-day cube test, 48, 45-day cube test. They are so anal about the quality of their concrete. But why are architects so slack with your screeding, your mortar, and your plastering specification? You guys lost control. And this is the biggest problem with tiling and waterproofing and with work with cracks and so forth. So that's why the industry must drive, you guys must drive the change for going towards none of this kind of site mix, because you're going to get all these issues. Okay? And these are actual photographs that we've taken for projects that are now in court, because we've taken samples from the screening, sent it to the lab, and found that it's not 1:3 or whatever the specifications, it's like 1:10. And then we check the architect's specification. The drawing says 1:3, the detailing says 1:6, the PQ says 1:4 for the same project. You see what I'm saying? So which one does the contractor follow? I will follow the 1:6. If I was the main contractor, right? Yeah. And then you are going to be in trouble. So I got some of my staff to take a sampling of some of the projects we're doing in the office, some of the sampling here. And then I said, I want you to just take a sample, and you can see these are all the variations found in just screening and mortar of the same project in the document. This is shameful. So we need volunteers to redraft and go back to basics about our architectural finishes, screening, mix, all the basic specifications, quality of sand. But don't go through all this. We already have companies today who are selling you the mix is ready. It's pre-back mortar, pre-back adhesive, pre-back screening. Let the developer pay for it. Why should you take that risk? The products are available. Okay? So all these are available. Just add water. And then all these problems will go away. Is it far too expensive? These are my projects in Bangkok. I've been using this for the last 10 years. I don't know why in Malaysia we are so resistant to it. So these are some of the tiling specifications that are extracted. You can see the variations. You don't even describe any standards. You don't describe what you're going to do. You see all these things here. It's just some QS. One of the QSs go and cannibalize a little bit. Then architects, do you read the specifications? I'm sure most of you don't even read those specifications until the problem comes. Okay? And a lot of times, as you can see from Litex things, we use foam oil on concrete walls. Condominiums today, we build out of concrete. And the foam oil sometimes are not washed off, and they use gutter oil to do it, and all the tiling will fall off from the walls. Waterproofing doesn't even stick on it. So as technology improves, architects being stagnant, you're going to get problems with your finishes. Okay? So these are usual debonding issues that, again, I'm asking you, is it design workmanship or to do with maintenance? Now, this one slide is very important. It's to do with normal porcelain tiles. Everybody loves porcelain tiles today. They look nice. They have this really classic look, and they have this nano coating on it. Do you know that nano coating is no different from your car polish? It's applied whole. It's not applied as a baked in, and they do get removed after a few years. So this one project, you see, all the nano coatings got gone off, and it started to stain. So the architect said, "Look, contractor, this one, you bought in the bad parts." He said, "No, I bought it from a trading house, the developer's trading house." And then we finally found out that it's a nano coating problem. So just realize that as you move forward, do your duty on the materials. Don't just take the word of the supplier for all these materials, because the impact is huge. Eventually, all the 3,000 blocks of this condominium have to be replaced. Who paid? Who's responsible? Whose professional indemnity insurance were affected? Okay, I don't think I have a lot more time, because I'm going to take some Q&A. This one, just the last one, is to do with the Windows standards. As you know, I might be coming back to Penang to do the road show for the MS 832 and MS 1107, which is, we have a new mandatory standard, wajib for casement windows and sliding door. That means you cannot use the whole industry now all have to go for testing. The minimum thickness of aluminium now is controlled. The materials are controlled. Everything is controlled. So all the lower end windows cannot be used anymore. We only have to raise the standard. It's starting in September. CITB is enforcing it in September. So my question to you is, what happens to your project halfway now? What happens to your project if you're halfway tendered today? I don't know. I don't have all the answers. However, architects just realize that in the meantime, you are left on your own until some shit hits the fan. So these are some of the investigations we see. These are in court, where these are the kind of quality of the parameter, the brickwork that are around, because some of these windows actually blew out during a storm. The whole window just decided to leave the building. Okay? So you can see the MS832 covers up to here, but everything below here, whether it's cement, mortar, brick, or whatever, they are not part of your MS832. So it still comes back to you. So how would you detail those things? Knowing I showed you the mortar mix is also a problem. Okay. So, and the MS832 and MS1107 does not cover any of the red arrows shown in this internal picture. It doesn't cover curtain wall, it doesn't cover top front, it doesn't cover handrails. Okay, so you're still a little bit in the dark, but there are now claims against people of various parties of glass handrails, which I see a lot in Penang. You guys love glass handrails, especially because you got the nice views here. Did you design your handrails according to correct standards? Are you doing it as the architect, or is it the engineer responsible to design glass handrails as far as the barrier road? Okay? Who's responsible? I just want to have a show of hands. Glass handrails. Shopping mall, condos. Yep. Huh? Architect or no? Architect or engineer?
Architect.
Huh?
Architect.
Okay, so tell me, if you say architect, can you put, oh shit, I put in the bylaw. Please go and look at it. And then, sorry, sorry, I made a name. Adeline, yeah. Adeline was helping me until she took a year off. So you better come back and develop this, okay? Okay? Alright, I'm going to stop now because I think I'm going to take some questions now. Rather than moving on to the slides, I'll just leave this picture for you to think about. Okay? So I'm going to take questions from you all because sorry, I need to leave quite soon after the event. I have to go back here for some private matter that suddenly came up last night. Questions? Yes, sir.
What happened?
Can give him the mic.
Specify.
Can you introduce yourself first, sir?
Okay. Actually, right? What happens when we specify two manufacturers' standards and details? What is the implication of architect's role then?
I think that's a very good question in consideration of what Nippon showed you in the slides just now. And this is happening a lot. Okay? So I give you one example. You do a bathroom, then you build the brick walls and everything, and then you specify brand A for waterproofing. Then you specify yourself in your specifications for wall rendering, right? And then you specify yourself the brick, and you specify yourself the mortar. You detail all the drops. But then you specify brand A for waterproofing, as the gentleman said. And then you specify brand B for the tile mortar adhesive. And then you specify the tile yourself. So it's not only just two brands, it is many, many things going on as a layered system. And then there is the debonding now between the waterproofing and the tile adhesive. I'm sure you guys know that, right? There's a debonding, it becomes apart. So who's responsible? I'm going to ask the audience. Because you guys are all contract administrators. You guys are architects. You get that problem on site. Who do you hold responsible? Because you are now the arbiter, right? You are the contract administrator. Who's responsible? It's not an easy analysis. And these issues are in court today. And architects are hauled up to answer these questions. And the contractor is going to, by all means, going to fight you because he's going to say there's incompatibility between this adhesive and this waterproofing. And then you're going to have to disprove him. Because he's proven it, then you're going to say, oh shit, but I specified the tool. So my solution to you is don't take on that, because when you design metal roofing, right? If you design metal deck roofing, do you specify the metal deck roofing and then you specify the screws from another company? Do you specify the flashing from another company? Do you specify the gutter from another company? No, in fact, you as architects will say, look, I go to livelihoods, you do the whole roof for me, right? Roof, including rainwater goods, including structure, including fasteners, including gutter, and give me 25 years, including insulation. You tell them, look, you do everything as a total solution. So why are we architects still stuck in designing streets, designing the adhesives and specifying yourself when you can now go to one company and say you do everything? Correct? Would you specify the undercoat of paint from company A and then second coat and third coat from another company? It's crazy, but that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing in the bathrooms. So rethink this, set up your committees, especially in Penang. Set up your committees and start going back to basics. There's only 4 areas you need to work at: tiling, plastering, screening, and waterproofing. That's all you need to work at. I think you can do it in 1 year. Okay, next question. Time, how's the time?
My name is Mark Hong. I would like to know what you can share.
Can I ask you to undress?
Okay. Can you share with us regarding limitation versus different activity?
Okay, I will I change to the lawyers. Okay, next question. A good question. Any more questions? Okay, in the interest of time, we're going to have a break now, correct? I'm going to just tell you all, please come back early, because if you don't want to miss anything, you can bring your makan intel if you all don't mind, rather than spending too much time outside. Just go out there, do your toilet break, and come back in with your food. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I think for 15 minutes break. And 35 to come back. To you very much. And 15.
เลขสวยโอ้โห
Please, can we have everybody?
Okay, without further ado, I would like to invite Fu Junyang of Gun Partnership to present the talk.
Everyone hear me? Loud? Okay, great. Morning everyone, thanks for having me. Thanks for being here on this Saturday morning.
Oh, thank you.
When we were asked to speak and someone in the group asked what's the dress code like, I think the organizer said office attire. I never imagined that Anthony wears this to work every day. We've seen the photos. Okay, so Anthony has kicked this off by speaking about the various aspects, the various issues that one will see in the building project, the various problems, and how the architect may potentially get involved. So I want to pick up from that and perhaps talk about the potential involvement of the architect in either court proceedings or in arbitration or in any dispute resolution process. Right? So I'll piggyback on what Anthony said a moment ago, or not a moment ago, at the start of this talk. Building disputes are largely about time and cost. Right? Now, when you administer a project as a project architect at DSO, who certifies time? Who certifies extension of time? You. Who certifies completion? You. Who certifies non-completion? You. Right? And if you certify an extension of time, employer loses money. Contractor potentially gets lost and expense. So that's the time. That's the cost impact of your time certification. If you don't certify extension of time, contractor loses money, employer gets LADs, potentially, right? And if you don't certify practical completion at the right time, there's going to be an argument between the employer and the contractor as to when the project is completed. And as Anthony mentioned earlier as well, not all projects today is about one completion date. You know, even the most basic building contracts that you look at, you've got, for example, completion date for your show unit, right? You want to complete until a certain level, a multi-story development, for example, you want to complete to a certain level before that show unit can be constructed. So there's an LED, a small LED element that is attached to that. Then you've got your entire building LED, right? That's in a very basic development. When you start talking about power plants, hydroelectric plants, every milestone has got a mini LED, right? And if you get your certification and your timing wrong, potentially the contractor will have to work with very little money because there is going to be LED knockoffs on every subsequent certificate, even at a very early stages of his work. And you know what the problem is going to be when the contractor doesn't get paid. There's a huge knock-on effect. Eventually, it will snowball, it will become too big, contractor will walk offside, entire project will be substantially delayed. Okay? And all that comes back to certification of time. Let's look at certification of money, progress claims. Right? If you under-certify, get it back. If you under-certify, somebody doesn't get paid, somebody gets paid less. And if it comes to a point where the contractor cannot proceed, he'll walk off the job, right? So in some of the cases that Yushin and I will discuss, you will see where the architect gets involved in court proceedings. It's no different in arbitration. He may also get involved in arbitration proceedings. And to give you context, when we talk about architects sued in court, as Anthony started by saying, it gives you the impression that the architect is being sued. That is, of course, the greatest fear. You don't want to be sued as a professional. Speaking from my perspective as a professional, I also don't want to be sued. But you can't stop somebody from suing you, right? You can't. The best you can do is apply to strike it out, and you strike it out, get some costs, which will never commensurate with the money that you spend to pay your lawyers. Will also not commensurate with the time that you spend fighting this, your insurance premiums going up, all that you will not get compensated for when somebody decides to sue you. Or that's one. Question is, who can sue you? Obviously the client, right? Your client, because there's that contractual relationship. Aside from the client, you also have the contractor with whom you've got no contractual relationship and we sue you. And in some instances, you have purchasers who are even further removed from you trying to sue you. Okay? We are starting to see more and more of these cases because people are getting more litigious. Why are people getting more litigious? Because there are more lawyers around, unfortunately, and as lawyers need more, right? And it's also partly because of the first few slides that we will look at, the Construction Industry Payment and Adjudication Act, CIPA. With CIPA, for those of you who have heard, CIPA introduces statutory adjudication. It's an alternative means for the contractor or the subcontractor to get payment. And that gives a very short period of time between claim and decision, give or take about 3 to 4 calendar months. Now, because it is fast, a lot of people make use of it. And when a lot of people make use of it, when there are a lot of users, a lot of contractors or subcontractors using CIPA, you need lawyers, you need claims consultants. So everybody out there today, lawyers, claims consultants, everybody is a construction lawyer. Because it's a sure way of making quick money in a very short period of time. And when you have all these people jumping into the bandwagon, becoming construction lawyers, we all then need to look for more work, right? Then we advise clients to sue the architects, whoever the client may be. Right? So you are then on the defensive. And I'm speaking from personal experience because as a lawyer, we can understand if the client is unhappy with our work. Right? We practice to the best of our ability. Clients sometimes are unhappy because we lose. Right? So sometimes clients will sue if they find negligence. Thankfully, it hasn't happened. But we have been sued, guess who? By whom? By the opposing party who loses to our client in a matter. They are not happy with the outcome, obviously, because they lost. And they sue the client, our client, and they sue us for conspiracy. Right? So you've got to defend all these kind of claims. Like it or not, like I said, you are not in a position to stop somebody from suing. They can sue. They can sue even if they don't like the way you look, right? So you just got to go up to court, step up to it and defend it. And if you choose to call on your insurance lawyers will jump in, then we've got to pay the insurance lawyers. Then our premium goes up as well, all of which we can never recover. So these are things to me that we find, if we choose to be a professional, we choose to be to practice what we practice, we've got to take it as it comes. We just need to ensure that whatever we do is unimpeachable, and we practice to the best of our ability. So, with that context, let me then show you the first few slides about adjudication. This is what makes almost everyone a construction. So, today's talk is not about CIPA. I'm just giving you the first few slides to introduce you to how CIPA has affected our lives as lawyers, your lives as architects. So adjudication, as you can see, is an interim measure to resolve construction disputes. So I will go through the first few slides very quickly because I want to emphasize on the later slides. If at any point you've got questions, I can take it at the end, or I'm happy to take emails as well. Now, unlike court claims or arbitrations, adjudications were introduced simply to allow cash flow to the contractor, right? Because at some point in time, there was concern that contractors were not getting paid, and contractors, well, most of the contractors will have the ability to go through an arbitration. If you go further down the pecking order, down to your labor subcontractor, the implementation laborers who are doing work on site, if they don't get paid, this is when the problem starts. They will stop work. They have no choice, right? When they stop work, the project will get stalled, and then you get a abandoned project. It's a knock-on effect. That's why CIPA, the Construction Industry Payment and Adjudication Act, was introduced to facilitate cash flow, to resolve payment disputes quickly. You'll see the slides later. It's about 3 to 4 months calendar time for the dispute to be resolved. Now, what it also does, as an alternative to court litigation and arbitration, is to manage the construction dispute, manage a brewing dispute. In this sense, progress claim, what? Contractor is underpaid. Typically, in the previous days, you will have to go to litigation or you have to go to court. That entire process will probably end when he finishes the project. Nobody can last that long if you're not paid, right? Or if you're underpaid. So what CIPA does is to allow for the first progress claim, first certification to go to statutory adjudication to get it resolved. If the second certificate comes out and there's another dispute, you take it on as well. So you can have multiple adjudications and you will have multiple adjudication decisions. Or what that might do is to perhaps reduce the gap between what the contractor says he should be paid and what the developer says I'm willing to pay. And when you reach the end, if that gap is not as big, it's not that big, typically the contractor and the employer will say, look, too much time, too much money to go through another arbitration. The gap is very small. Let's either drop it or let's meet halfway. But if you didn't have the statutory adjudication, what would have happened in the past is it waits until the gap becomes too big, until when the contractor cannot tahan, he will terminate, he will walk off. Then the big fight happens, and the gap is already so big that the developer is no longer willing to talk. Because when the contractor walks off, for example, in the last 1 or 2 years, when your material prices skyrocket, the next tender exercise that the developer gets into, his contract price will be very high, right? So there's no way he's going to resolve the previous contractor's claims because he's got to keep his money to pay the new contractor. Okay, so CIPA does that and manages disputes, and you get a decision in a short period of time. It is not meant to be an exercise where the nuts and bolts will be counted. You're not going to get an exact decision as to what is due under a particular disputed claim. What the adjudicator can do within this very short period of time is to make an estimate, all right? And the law accepts that this estimate is not the exact. There can be errors. The whole idea is to, if you're asking for $1 million, or if the contractor is asking for $1 million, developer says $500,000, the adjudicator says it's somewhere in between. At least the contractor gets the money to move forward, all right? But today, with the introduction of CIPA in 2014, that was in 2014, we are now in 2023, 9 years later, it has become a more sophisticated process because lawyers have jumped in and insisted on certain processes to be followed. Court judgments have followed those arguments. So adjudicators are kept on a very tight leash, right? There are certain things they need to do. They need to observe natural justice and so on, right? So it's become a more complicated process. It's become a more expensive process. When in reality, it was really intended to substitute what the architect is supposed to do on site. If the architect fails to do it, or if the architect has done it as the SO, as a certified person, but the developer doesn't pay, this process is meant to substitute that so that the contractor gets paid. Certainly as architects, you don't go into natural justice issues, you don't have oral hearings, you don't have multiple documents being sent to you in boxes for the purposes of the dispute, but this is what the adjudicator needs to do today. So it's become a little bit more complicated, but the legal position, the expectation is still the same. All right. Okay, so it's still meant to be rough justice. For those of you who have been involved in statutory adjudication, you constantly hear this phrase, pay first, argue later. And that is very true, right? That's what statutory adjudication is. And there is a reason I mentioned it, we'll come to it in a while. So how has this changed from arbitration or litigation to adjudication? Arbitration is a consensual process. Parties have to sign an agreement to arbitrate. Adjudication, no such thing. You can't agree not to adjudicate, right? The law is there to protect the contractor, the subcontractor. So if the contractor and subcontractor decide that he wants to bring an adjudication against whoever is the paymaster, he's entitled to. You can't contract out of it. Okay. Now this is where it then affects you or it helps you. Because in all that I discussed so far, it's between contractor and employer, subcontractor and main contractor. But do you also know that if you are claiming for your fees as the architect of a project, you're entitled to use SIPA as well. You're entitled to bring the employer, your client, to adjudication to pay your fees. What comes of the relationship after that, I don't know. But at least you get paid your fees, right? So this is the definition of what SIPA covers. Every construction contract. And construction contract by definition includes a construction work contract and construction consultancy contract. What is relevant to you would be a consultancy, construction consultancy contract. Again, I got the definition there. You can look at it at your own time. This is all written in SIPA. Later, you will come across a case that I will put on the slides, where our federal court, the highest court of the land, has said that a consultant can use statutory adjudication to recover his fees. Right? So these are the timelines, not the focus of the talk today, but you will see a stipulation of the number of days from start to end. These are working days. All right. So in terms of calendar days, it works out to roughly about 3 to 4 months, depending on how many public holidays and how many weekends you're working at. So the one other point to note, which is relevant to a discussion later on, is that the adjudication decision is only temporarily final. Much like your interim certificates, they are temporarily final. Okay? It is final unless somebody takes it to court, the same dispute to court or to arbitration to revisit the dispute. So for example, if you are looking at progress claim or certificate number 39, you take it to adjudication, the contractor takes it to adjudication, and the adjudicator decides that X amount of ringgit is due. That decision of X amount of ringgit is only temporarily final. Intention is that the employer pays that first. Whoever is unhappy with that X ringgit can take it to arbitration or to court later to have it revisited, right? Because at arbitration or court, that is where all the time will be spent on the nuts and bolts to arrive at a very accurate decision. At adjudication, adjudicator is just going to come to a rough figure to facilitate cash flow. Okay, so that's one instance where adjudication decision will not be final. Second, of course, is it is set aside, and we'll look at some of the reasons or some of the basis of setting aside an adjudication decision. The third is where the dispute is obviously settled between parties. Right, once it's settled, then the adjudication decision ceases to be final. Now, the 4 grounds of challenge, I will not trouble you with that, but just note that these are very procedural grounds, nothing to do with the merits. So the legal position is this: the adjudicator can get it factually wrong, can get it legally wrong in terms of getting his law completely wrong. All right, he can read the contract wrongly as well. These are not grounds set aside an adjudication decision. Okay. So it is only on the failure of processes that you see in 15A, B, C, D that you can set aside an adjudication decision. Now, in all the last 9 years of practicing adjudication, I have not come across a situation where I've been able to prove fraud, bribery. So good luck with items. Good luck with items A and good luck with item A. B, C, and D are a little bit more common. You know, C especially impartiality. Some people just can't bite their tongue. They make very angry findings in the adjudication decision, and based on that, we can launch an argument that is being a little bit biased. Okay. So we've had adjudicators, for example, saying, I can't understand contractors behaving like that, or I can't understand employers behaving like this. This is a typical employer who doesn't pay on a certificate. So when one goes overboard and makes these findings, there's us lawyers coming in after the event looking at it, say that this is potentially an area where I can argue that the adjudicator has been biased. Right? Natural justice is the facility or the ability to be heard for both sides to argue their case, to be heard. Sometimes as well there's a failure of natural justice when the adjudicator thinks about something, he decides on that thought that he has, but he doesn't allow parties to address it. Okay, that happens. Human failings. And when we talk about when we talk about jurisdiction, it's essentially. Can I hold the mic? This is better? Everyone can hear better? Alright. I lost my train of thought. Thank you. You're paying attention. Excessive jurisdiction. It is essentially where the adjudicator goes beyond what is asked to decide, right? It's asked to look at certificate number 39. He then says, I'm going to order certificate 39 to be paid because certificate number 40 is due as well. So when people go beyond that, and you see, as architects, when you are certifying a progress claim, you get into all of these things. You don't, right? Sometimes the contractor sits in front of you to justify why he's making all these claims and then talking you through his progress claim documents. Employer is not that. When you try that in an adjudication, that's a surefire way of getting an adjudication decision reversed or thrown away, right? When you're listening to one party and not the other. So adjudication has become complicated in that sense because we lawyers make it complicated like that. So that's something that as architects we want to be aware of, because eventually when an adjudication decision is delivered and there is a finding that there has been an under-certification, for example, or over-certification, God forbid, then somebody will be looking at you as to why there has been an under-certification or over-certification. And this problem becomes more acute because in adjudications, the adjudicator can also avoid interest. All right. We'd like to think that everybody, all of us act impartially when we're certifying. So we don't listen to what the employer says, for example. Some employers, and we've seen, I did record it in the matter, which I did, but an employer told the architect, hold on to your certificate, don't issue it yet. Wait till later on before you issue your certificate. Obviously because he doesn't want to pay, right? We had that recorded in the full conversation. That is interference by the employer. Or in certain instances, employer says, don't certify this particular item, on this particular item, reduce the certification amount, right? So it happens. But short of that, if the employer doesn't say that, and you as architects decide to err on the side of the employer, right? Sometimes it happens for obvious reasons, because we know who the paymaster is. And if that happens, not on the instructions of the employer, and there's a finding that there's been under certification in adjudication, the employer then will have to pay the difference in the amount, right? The under certified sum. Over and above that, the employer will also have to pay interest on that. And because the contractor has won the adjudication by showing that there has been an under certification, the employer will also have to pay costs for the adjudication, which is not low yet. Cost of the adjudication is very, very high. I've been slapped with cost of 240,000 on an adjudication, right? Because the adjudicators are largely private practitioners. They're not government officers like registrars, like judges, and so on. So us in private practice, we know what the value of a commercial transaction is. We are more willing to avoid substantial costs. So cost of 50,000, 60,000, 80,000 for an adjudication is very, very normal, right? So when I complained about having been hit with cost of 240,000, my opponent reminded me that I had asked for cost of 300,000. So that happens. Employer will have to pay all of that because there has been an under certification. Now, in the instance, leave aside the instance where the employer has interfered with the certification process. If the employer did not interfere, will the employer then not look to you and say, why did you under certify? As a result of which now I've got to pay interest, now I've got to pay cost, which would very well be a 6-figure sum. And that figure could have gone to the next certification, right? So these are things that we will look at a little bit more in the next few slides. Okay, before I move on from CIPA, the advantages of a statutory adjudication decision, the contractor can suspend performance or reduce the progress of his performance if he has got an adjudication decision in his hand and the employer doesn't pay. Alright? So if there's an undercertified sum or a sum that the employer has failed to pay and the adjudicator has found in favor of the contractor can say, I'm going to stop work or I'm going to slow down until you pay me that amount. This is another instance where the employer will then potentially look to the architect and say, look, you're undercertified, now I'm facing these consequences. How am I going to deal with it? Because I don't have the cash flow to pay this amount now. Right? And direct payment, this is more relevant to a subcontractor. Sometimes the subcontractor gets an adjudication decision against the main contractor. Main contractor either has folded or doesn't want to pay. Right? Now, SEPA allows the subcontractor to go directly to the employer and say, look, I've got this sum that is due from the main contractor to me. It has not been paid. If you owe any money to the main contractor, pay directly to me. Right? In a normal instance, we can't do that because obviously there's no validity of contract. But SEPA allows that. So you can see how SEPA was designed and what the regime is like to facilitate cash flowing downwards. Right? Okay, so some salient features of SEPA. The first two I don't think are terribly exciting to you. SEPA does not apply to contracts pre-15th of April 2014. Now that we're in 2023, very unlikely that you'll still be dealing with those contracts. So on the section 30 that I spoke about earlier, where you have direct payment, the subcontractor can go for direct payment against the employer as well, even if the main contractor has been wound up, provided the sum has been due before the winding up of the main contractor. Okay, it applies to final accounts. The example that I gave earlier, I was talking about how SEPA was to facilitate cash flow during the project. Sometimes there is a determination of the employment of the contractor midway through for various reasons. Even the last certificate, or if he completes the job, the final certificate, parties can make a claim through statutory adjudication under SEPA, and that's clear. And Martego and Architect Neo and Chu is a case that I was mentioning about, where our federal court has said that consultants can resort to SEPA to claim for their consultancy fees. And armed with a statutory adjudication decision in your hand, you can actually wind up the party who has not paid. Right? You can present it for winding up. There are some exceptions that those cases decided, or rather discuss it. If there is a substantial counterclaim or substantial set-off against the adjudication decision amount, there is an argument that you can keep the winding up and pay. But all those are technicalities. Best that you pay a lawyer to talk to you about it. And conditional payment arrangements, right? Alibaba companies, I pay you when I get paid. So on a $2 company, I take out a $1 billion project. I start it all downwards and I tell everybody downstairs that if I don't get paid, I don't pay you. Right? SEPA gets rid of additional payment arrangements. So you can no longer run that take work with a $2 company and start it all downstairs and say that I will only pay if I get paid. Right? That's quite good. Okay. So what do we take away from the onset of statutory adjudication under SEPA? What we have seen from our personal experience is, from the example that I gave you earlier, objectively certified. Okay, that's a given. Obviously, we know that that's a requirement, but that is something that is now more acute. You need to have reasons as to why you certify. I have been involved in matters where the architect has certified all the way progressively up until completion without ever going to the site. Okay, he sends a friend to the site. Of course, this is not a big project, this is a bungalow. I was acting for the bungalow owner. When the last 10% was due, he decided to take a visit to this bungalow that he thought was about to be completed. Ground floor slab was 60% done. Right? House wasn't painted. And it was certified at 90%. Contractor was asking for the balance 10%. That was when he first realized that the architect hadn't gone to site at all. And the architect was just relying on the contractor's phone call saying, my friend, another 10%, he's certified. Okay, so those things happen particularly smaller projects, right? The example I gave you is a real life example. It did happen, but perhaps a very extreme example. But you can think about situations in between, right, where certification is not exactly accurate, and the employer is willing to pay. And the employer will certainly look to the architect and ask you, why did you certify? And I've spoken to a very senior arbitrator as well. When we're in arbitration, on certification of value of work done, for example, or extension of time, the employer will have his own expert, the contractor will have his own expert. You have competing expert evidence. The poor arbitrator, who sometimes is a lawyer, will have to decide between the two, which one is correct in terms of value of work done, which one is correct in terms of assessment of extension of time, who has a better critical delay analysis, right? So this is what a very senior arbitrator told me on a social occasion, and I think it's very true. The arbitrator will look at what the project consultant says. All right. If the arbitrator has assessed that the project consultant was on the ball, and if the arbitrator assesses that the project consultant, there was nothing substantially wrong with the approach taken by the project consultant, the arbitrator will likely defer to the project consultant. Okay. Now, that is in a situation where the project consultant's work is under scrutiny by two sets of experts, both of whom are paid to say diametrically opposite things, right? And both of whom are likely to say that the architect got it wrong. Which one of you, when leading an extension of time application, actually does a delay analysis? Who charts the critical path? Do you have the time to do that? Now, I can say in 80% of the disputes that I'm involved in, as good and as on the ball as the architect has been, not very many of them have done a critical path analysis. All right? Look at your plan conditions. What does it say? Some specifications even specify that the contractor, when applying for an extension of time, must present a critical path analysis. Right? That is what the specifications say. Contractor presents a half-baked delay analysis without using any software. Architect then certifies extension of time. The contractor doesn't comply. What has the architect done? In giving the extension of time, it's okay if he dismisses it, but if he gives it, has he done the critical path analysis? Some of the architects who might have to cross-examine on the stand say, I don't even know how to do a critical path analysis. And that's fair, right? Because it depends on the nature of the projects you're involved in. If you are looking at a bungalow, and if the subject matter is a bungalow or lake houses, for example, you may not necessarily need to do that. Right? But somebody somewhere, like US perhaps, has specified it as being the basis of an extension of time. Okay? So you get into all these issues when you're certifying, because somebody down the road, when a dispute erupts, is going to critically evaluate what you have done as a consultant. And I don't know about you, but us as lawyers are very good at pointing out what another lawyer has done wrongly. Right? That's the best thing that we do. We want to put somebody else down. So I get a file from Yushin, not that I've done it before. I don't know Yushin until we've met this time around. I will critically evaluate his work that he's done. If everything has been done well, I will challenge, I will say, look, the language doesn't lose. Or he sent this letter on the 18th of June, why didn't he have sent it on the 15th of June? What was he doing in the 3 days? Well, people will say things like that, right? And I will be the first to confess, take the best file that I've managed, that I've eventually won at the end. Anybody looking at it will be able to find numerous areas where I could have done it better, right? Now put yourself in that position when you are now the centerpiece of a dispute between two parties, both of whom, one saying that you should have granted more extension of time, another saying that you shouldn't have been granted any extension of time. So both these parties will have various reasons as to how you behave so badly on site. Never meet your side, so on and so forth, right? And you will be under scrutiny. And although you are not a party to that litigation, you might be a witness who has to take an oath who has got to be in the witness box and who has to answer very difficult questions. Like, do you know what a critical path analysis is? Right? And for those who say that I don't, or for those who say that I do know what it is, but I haven't done it, can you imagine judge writing a judgment, citing that passage, and it happens there, citing that passage, and it comes out in a reported judgment, right? And the reported judgment is a public document that everybody who does a search will be able to find. In fact, today, you key the name of the architectural practice. If it has been referred to in the court judgment, it will probably come out in your Google search. Can you imagine a finding that so and so confessed on the stand that he doesn't know how to carry out a critical path analysis? These things happen. The next time you take the stand, because that obviously won't be your last job, you'll still be doing a lot of work. The next time you take the stand, somebody is going to wave this in your face and say, by the way, there's a finding against you in another unrelated matter that you don't know how to do a critical path analysis. Okay? So all these things will be done to discredit you, even though you are not a party to the litigation, and even though no liability attaches immediately in the case, nobody's claiming against you. It affects your reputation. And I say that to you, it happens to us as well. There are reported decisions where conveyancing lawyers have failed to do land searches. Finding by the High Court judge that so and so has been negligent because he didn't do a search, right? And it's a reported decision. What do you do with that? Okay? So, like I said, you can't prevent anybody from suing you. The best that you can do is to act objectively and then pay attention to what you're doing to be sure that you're able to defend it. So what I tell myself and what I tell my team in the office, every letter that you write, imagine yourself sitting in the witness box and this letter being waved at you. So if you want to say something derogatory in the letter, you want to call somebody stupid, you want to make a sarcastic statement in your letter, imagine you now sitting in a somber environment in the courtroom, with the judge looking at you, trying to pass judgment at you, and various lawyers in the courtroom waiting, training their guns at you. Like I said, lawyers are best at showing that somebody else is worse off than he is, right? So a bunch of lawyers looking at it, bar counsel waiting to pass judgment on you, all these things happening, right? So the next letter you write, be prepared to defend your letter in that environment. Okay? So certification, we come back to that. In the scheme of things, as architects of an ongoing project, you are not able to come down to a very exact amount in terms of your certification, even in terms of time analysis, right? Your hands are tied. I had a matter where architect said, look, what the contractor gave me was completely hopeless for me to make an assessment of time. But because this wasn't a big project and I was in control of everything, I knew the facts, I was able to assess it. All right? And this is the assessment that I come up with. Very fair position. Very fair position. But you look at your plan conditions again, extension of time. The person who's supposed to give the information to the architect is a contractor. Right? And there are conditions preceded. If it has not been given, it's not the place of the architect to then go and do a fact-finding mission on his own, because the burden rests on the contractor. I can understand that the architect trying to be fair, trying to achieve a win-win situation to get the project moving, and that's what a lot of architects I deal with say. Look, I can take this strict black letter approach, I can read the contract, I can apply the contract, and I can screw the contractor. Because I told him 10 times and he's not come back to me with a proper extension of time application, right? And he's trying to do his work, but in terms of paperwork, it was terrible, right? And we can understand when we look at the contractor that, right, he's just trying to do the work on the side. He doesn't have people sitting in the room writing letters. So he didn't get the letter writing bit correct. So what the architect did is, look, if I don't give him the extension of time, he's going to walk off the site. Because whatever he earns by the end of the project will all be knocked off in terms of amenities. So what the architect did was to assess to the best of his ability with extraneous evidence that he could get to give the extension of time. But that ultimately fell in arbitration. with the best of intentions. He was trying to get the project moving, he was trying to complete the project. But the contractual requirement for the contractor to provide the information and the delay analysis was absent. So the long and short of it was the contractor was not entitled to any extension of time. Okay? Now with that finding, employer then will look to the architect and say, why did you give the extension of time? Right? So these are things that you've got to bear in mind. Fairness is of course something that plays in our mind, but the other is the contract. We've got to be very familiar with what the requirements of the contract are. Okay? And still on this point, let me digress. Extension of time applications. Something very close to my heart because I argued this and I lost it. How many of the projects have the contractors made an application for an extension of time within the time period stated in the bank contract? I think you've got to give notice within 28 days, right? The first notice within 28 days. And upon occurrence or completion of the delay event, the contractor has got to give a fairly detailed analysis of the effect of the delay, not on the progress, but on the completion date. So he's got to do that delay analysis, which is not easy if you are very early on in the project, right? Now, which contractor has done that? I've come across situations where contractors have done that, but all out of time, okay? Because at some point they realize that they have not done it, they go outside, they get a very good claims consultant, comes back with something very nice, but it's all out of the 28 days. Okay? So I have not personally come across a situation where a contractor has fully complied with the requirements within the time period. And I'll tell you from the legal position, it is a condition precedent. You can't run away with that. The moment you don't comply, even if you are delayed because of COVID lockdown, no entry to site. Right? Everybody will tell you that you're entitled to extension of time. But if you didn't make an application, the condition precedent is not met, you are not entitled to time. Full stop. Okay? I've had a situation where, notwithstanding, architect is very fair, architect assessed the extension of time and gave an extension of time on very good reasons. I then argued that by conduct over a period of time, the parties have waived the notification requirements. They have waived the condition precedents. Because in my last two extension of time applications, I was grossly out of time. Architect was very nice to me. He came back to me and said, "Look, can you give me this, that, and the other?" And he gave me extension of time. So came the third extension of time application. Architect suddenly said, "I'm not giving it to you because you're out of time." Okay? So we naturally argued that, look, you've led me to believe in the past conduct that this process is not going to be followed and that you will give me an extension of time. So the High Court found that the architect is not in a position to waive the condition precedent. Okay? The architect, although in some instances is the agent of the employer, in terms of certification, he must be independent. And because he's independent, he cannot be the agent of the employer. He could not have had the authority to waive the contractual requirements, the conditions precedent for the extension of time application. It is only the employer who can waive it. This was decided in the bridge collapse in KL Eco City and Taksim. It's a reported decision. Now we took it up on appeal. Unfortunately, the Court of Appeal didn't look at this point. And when we tried to walk to the federal court, we couldn't get leave. So that is the legal position now. The architect, as a consultant or as an SO, is in no position and has no authority to waive contractual requirements on behalf of the employer, at least insofar as extension of time requirements are concerned. Okay? That's something you might want to bear in mind. Now, the next point to be mindful of is with CIPA, if all what we prepared was price. Okay? Because the employer is typically the one who is going to be on the receiving end of the adjudication claim. Now, because CIPA has been so successful, I think 80-90% of the claims are allowed. Alright? And statistically, a very, very small percentage of adjudication decisions are set aside. So contractors are emboldened. Can you imagine if I got 10 ongoing projects, I get 1 million on each project, it's 10 million in my pocket. I can make it almost a full-time job. I don't have to do any other contracts or do any other work for a year. I just I'll just make claims in SIPA against my various employers, right? And so I have been in a situation where acting for 3 different developers, coincidentally, we receive statutory adjudication claims from the same contractor, same lawyers. So obviously somebody out there is selling these services to contractors who say, look, do you know that you can actually get some money out of this? And so they fire in all directions, and quite successfully. So they get emboldened and they make claims. And over time they refine that process of how they make the claims. Okay? And a lot of times when we're acting for the developer, we get caught out in the cold because documents are not in order. Project ongoing, some consultants holding on to some documents in the side office, some documents in another off-site office, some documents in the headquarters, some documents somewhere still in the post, and you only have 10 working days to respond. Okay? You don't know when the contractor is coming after you, because the contractor has all the time in the world to come up with 10 boxes of documents. They dump it on you. Or rather, they dump it on the employer. What does the employer do? It's a certification issue. Employer will push the 10 boxes to you, or you invite you to his office and say, you sit down here and sort this out. Right? 10 boxes when you have no documents. So from my experience, having documents properly filed away is very, very important. Having a filing system, having a protocol within the office as to how the documents are circulated is very important. Because a lot of times, and I'm not talking about small developers, big developers as well, there is no file. The file has to be collated from everybody's drawer. Depending on who the letter was addressed to, it's in this drawer. And if the person leaves, then we don't know what happens to the drawer. Okay? So that also deals with my third point, contemporaneous documentation. Now, as a consultant, and this is a problem that we face quite a bit, when we are faced with a SIPA or the employer is faced with an adjudication claim, the surest answer is a set-off. Right? Because a lot of times work is done, certified, what else is there to say? You can argue till you turn blue in the face. Likelihood is that the adjudicator will say certified some paid. Alright? Uncertified, at least you've got some areas to maneuver around. But if it's certified, you've got to think out of the box. And our response usually is LED or defects rectification costs. But if the project is ongoing, you can't even talk about defects rectification costs because the contractor will say, I'm still there, I'll sort it out for you. So don't set off. LED. LED only works if your project completion date has expired. If it's still ongoing, you also did for water. But let's assume that LED is a valid set-off. A lot of times you are cut out because the CNC is not issued. If you look at your bank contract again, the CNC is a condition precedent. Alright? So when we say where's the CNC, tomorrow the CNC goes out. Contractor then comes back and says, afterthought. Alright? Adjudicators will also see through it, adjudicators will not read it. Okay? So the CNC is always a problem for us because it's not issued on time. If today is the contract completion date or the extended completion date, tomorrow work is not completed, the CNC should go out. Right? But a lot of times, architect comes along and says, or contractor says, give me a day or two, it affects various things, affects my bond, affects my insurance policy. I don't know what it is. Right? Or over a cup of coffee, they say, let's hold on, let me try to sort things out. And in our culture, there's a lot of coffee table, tea time talk, help me out, I'll help you out, that kind of stuff. And I can understand, because a lot of consultants have also told me that the moment I issue the CNC, everybody will be up in arms, the contractor might walk off the site. So I'm trying to manage the situation, which I also understand. Alright? But unfortunately, people have become so litigious. Contractors lose, I don't have a CNC, how am I going to defend it? Right? And can I ask you this? If I'm faced with a adjudication claim for say 5 million, I've got a LED that is running at say 6 million or even 3 million. So that is a legitimate set-off. I go and argue the LED set-off, the adjudicator says no way, because you don't have a CNC. What is the employer going to say? Who was supposed to issue the CNC? Why did you issue the CNC? Again, you see the potential problem. Okay? So that's the last two items on those slides. Now, let's look at some cases. I'll show you architects. A case that I think Yushin is going to talk about as well. But this is one of those cases where it's not a typical identity of the architect to the employer, because that's contractual. The employer engages you. If you don't do your work well or you're negligent, it's a no-brainer, you're exposed to the employer. For example, if you don't issue a CNC on time, okay, it's a no-brainer. But the difference is that LC architect was a case where the contractor is not the architect. Okay, so you will know that between the contractor and the architect, there is no contract. There is no privity of contract. But what had happened in this particular case is that the architect had issued a certificate, and in the certificate, he had knocked off, I think, 750,000, certificate 19. That was what, in the assessment of the architect, was a defects rectification cost. So, although the contractor succeeded in an adjudication against the employer, the adjudication sum that was awarded was short of 750,000 because of certificate number 19. Okay, interim certificate number 19. Now, the contractor then was obviously unhappy. He sued the architect for the 750,000, saying that you negligently under-certified the 750,000. Okay. Now, leaving aside whether the knockoff was valid or not valid, as a matter of principle, can a contractor sue the architect? There's no contract. And can you imagine, for all of you administering a project on site, already you've got a contractual obligation to the employer, you've got to make sure you perform that. You've got to worry about this further down there suing you as well, who has got no contract. Okay? Now, if the contractor can sue you, what about the NSC, the subcontractor, whose certificates will come through the contractor, right? What if you under-certify those? They also can sue you. The unfortunate thing is that the Sessions Court gave judgment against the architect, 750,000. Okay, so architect obviously very perplexed, and through a complete lack of understanding, the Sessions Court also took into account the architect's own concession on the witness stand that he owed a duty to the subcontractor, and the subcontractor will, to the main contractor, and that the main contractor will be affected by his certification. Obviously he will be affected because that's how much he's going to be paid. But the Sessions Court judge, taking into account the architect's concession that he owed a duty to the contractor, is really something I can't understand, because whether a duty is owed or not is something for the judge to decide. It's a legal concept which the architect didn't know about, right? If this question is asked, typically we'll stand up in court and say, look, why are you asking the architect? He's not a lawyer. Even if he's a lawyer, it's not for him to say whether a duty arises or not, it's for the judge. Okay, but for some reason, the Sessions Court judge decided that since our friend agreed that he owed a duty, obviously the 750,000 affected the contractor's pocket, judgment was entered. Fortunately, in the High Court, this was reversed. The High Court looked at a fair amount of detail on the legal principles as to when liability can be attached to the architect vis-a-vis the contractor, right? And obviously the Sessions Court got it completely wrong. Sessions Court looked at various other cases from various other countries, including a case that doesn't concern construction. The case that the Sessions Court relied on was on the valuation of shares, if I'm not mistaken. A case from the UK where one party was selling and one party was buying shares. Somebody was paid to value those shares. And it was later discovered that the shares were undervalued. So the seller sued the valuer to say that you under-certified, and as a result of which I was underpaid. We can see that how different that is from the context of an architect certifying as between employer and main contractor. Obviously, the lack of understanding of our judiciary, and I'll digress. All right. When we are involved in matters of this nature, we know what the legal principles are, and to me, this is very elementary. But you see how wrong this has gone, how badly this has gone. All right. So that's the problem when, and this emboldens people to sue, because they know that there is at least a 1% chance that a mistake will be made, And the poor architects in this particular case had their office sealed, right? Because 750,000. Which professional has 750,000 in the pocket ready to pay out? You'd be quite foolish to keep 750,000 in your bank account. You might as well invest it in something else, isn't it? So these people didn't have 750,000 and the demand came very fast and the office was sealed, right? And so this is potentially a problem. But the good news is eventually it was decided that there is no liability. And the thinking process is this. In a construction project, there are contractual relationships all around, right? If you are unhappy with certification as the main contractor, take it up against the employer. There are provisions for arbitration. If there is under-certification, the employer has to make good, it's going to pay you. No reason to get out of that and sue somebody else. If the employer is wrong, or if there was truly under-certification and the employer pays, but the employer feels that the architect was wrong, then there is also a contractual relationship between the employer and the architect. For employer to work with the architect, no reason for you to sue directly. Okay, so that was the thinking process. I'm running out of time. I'll just skip past these passages. I think you will have the slides. The Architects Act, I recall that I think Yushin is dealing with that as well, so I'll leave it to Yushin. Effectively, you need to be registered in order to be able to sue for your fees. Westar was on something slightly different where the architect as a lead consultant on the umbrella was putting through to the employer fees of their sub-consultants as well, engineers and so on. We know that there's nothing wrong with that, but for some reason, some court decided that the architect was claiming with the engineer's fees. So this was also reversed, I think. Right, so these are the rules. Fraudulent certificates. Singaporean case, this is peculiar to the Singapore context because under the Singapore's Institute of Architects Standard Form contract, there's a provision that allows for certificates to be the subject of the summary judgment application in court. Okay, summary judgment meaning you don't have to go through the process of a full trial. You can make a claim in court. Unless it has been proven, amongst others, that the certificate is fraudulently issued. Fraudulent not only in the sense that somebody has taken money, but also in a situation where an architect certifies without belief as to accuracy. So in this particular case, Chin Island, architect certified on the basis of the employer telling him that the contractor has agreed. Alright? So he certified this particular sum. When in fact, the employer came along and said, no, I didn't tell you that. And the contractor also says, I didn't agree to anything. So on the undisputed facts, and those were quite peculiar facts, the court set aside the certificate, saying that it was fraudulent. Okay. Wrongful architect certificates. The last case, the King Point also relied on Chin Island. But these are situations where there's a finding of the certificate being fraudulent. I've cited these examples these as examples of my earlier illustration of how bad it can look on the architect when there is a finding in court that the certificate is fraudulent. Now, in our case, I've seen many situations where the architect's work or the consultant work is impugned and it becomes part of the judgment in court, and that doesn't really look very good. Okay? I think that takes me to the end. Can I have 5 minutes to sorry, I overrun a little bit for a lot, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them over the next 5 minutes. Yep. Someone will give you a mic.
My name is Lawrence. I hear you say that the employer can actually pay contractor to fund as far as our engagement. Can you clarify that? For example, let's say go to the client says, or I can give you 10 days extra.
Yes. Yes, they can. So, you see, the contract, PAM condition, for example, that is a contract between an employer and the main contractor. All right. Any contractual provision can be varied or waived by the party who's going to benefit or who's benefit from the contractual provision. In your example, employer saying, okay, give him the extra 10 days. Okay, but what I will do as the architect is to have that recorded in writing with the employer and get them to sign a supplement. So it will be more of what I would word it as is an extension of the revision of the completion date. Because quite often, for the employer to say, I'll give him the 10 days, it is likely because the contractor hasn't fulfilled the requirements he has to fulfill to be entitled to the 10 days. So if you were to administer the contract in accordance with the requirements of the contract, you wouldn't give the 10 days. So it's not an extension of time to me, it's a revision of the completion date. So it's an agreement or variation by the agreement of both parties. Okay. But in terms of waiving rights, so for example, if there's a condition precedent that the employer has not, so the contractor has not fulfilled, employer can say, okay, forget about the condition precedent, I'll waive it. Right? There was a question earlier about defects and limitation period. Latent defects, was it defects? Or defects by the period. Alright, limitation generally starts from when the obligation is due. Right? When the obligation can be enforced. So for example, contractual obligations, you are entitled to sue within 6 years from when the obligation was had crystallized and the person had failed to comply. So defects liability period ends, say, 1.5 years or 2 years down the road. So a failure to rectify the defects, the cause of action starts generally at the end of that defects liability period, unless in the contract also says any defects notified has got to be rectified within 30 days or whatever it is. Then it might arguably start at the end of the 30 days. Otherwise, the limitation generally starts at the end of the defects liability period. There's a slight exception in terms of latent defects, because obviously you won't know about it until it surfaces. Okay. Yes, sir. Casey.
Hi, my name is Casey. I just want to ask, in terms of the CIPA application, you mentioned there's a 45 days process.
45 days is for the last document going in, which is the adjudication reply, to when the adjudicator must make his decision, unless parties agree to an extension of time.
Yeah, I mean, some interim certificate might be less than that, say 30 days. And the contractor said, look, I haven't got my decisions, so I still have another 15 days. I stop work. Can they stop work for the 15 days until he gets the decision?
So there are two parts here. Contractor stopping work or not being paid on an interim certificate, that is a contractual right. So like a PAN form says that if there's a certified sum and I'm not paid, I'm entitled to suspend works. And I'm entitled to extension of time for that period. So that is under the contract, it's a contractual right. CIPA is slightly different. It is a statutory right which arises only from when the adjudication decision is made. So the adjudication decision is made at the end of the 45 days. So when the adjudication decision is made at the end of the 45 days and no payment is made, then the contractor can suspend his works.
But in 30 days, he was suspended his work because
yes,
the contract says 30 days, but still got another 15 days to go for the adjudication.
Oh, well, no. He doesn't have to wait for the adjudication decision. And his 30 days doesn't start when the 45 days start. His 30 days will have started from when the certificate had come out. So that 45 days is basically a safety net for claims that are not based on certificates. So if there's an uncertified sum and somebody makes a claim in adjudication and he succeeds, he gets an adjudication decision for that uncertified sum, he's also entitled to suspend works, although under the contract it was not entitled.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hello. Hi. Just now you're saying about this previously of contract with regards to this payment on behalf.
Yes.
So let's say the dispute is between two parties, which is the subcon and the main con. So what does the educator, how does the educator do? Does he just advise or does he order the employer to pay or does he leave it to the High Court?
He leaves it to the High Court. So when you talk about the dispute between the main contractor and the subcontractor, the adjudicator only decides the dispute between main contractor and subcontractor, because that's where the contract is. Assume that the adjudicator decides that the subcontractor is entitled to R1 million. main contractor then doesn't pay on the decision. Subcontractor can go to the employer and say, hello, Mr. Employer, I've got this adjudication decision against your main contractor for ringgit, but he has not paid me. So I'm now giving you notice that within a certain period of time, you've got to pay me this money.
So the adjudicator is just signs on that.
Yeah, the adjudicator deals purely with the dispute in front of him, which is that between the main contractor and the subcontractor.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Question on the decision made by or on support basis.
Yes.
All right. Question one is it a final decision? That means they cannot take further to court. That's question one. If it is not, then you can get endorsement from the court on the decision.
Yep. Okay. So an adjudication decision is temporarily final, in the sense that it's good enough for enforcement, right? But it is not final in the sense that you can still challenge it in terms of a final dispute resolution process, either arbitration or court, or you can apply to set it aside. You can challenge it on the processes of the adjudication, or third, you can settle it. That's why it's temporarily final only. Now, if you are thinking about whether someone can appeal against an adjudication decision, answer is no, you can't. You can only set it aside on 4 reasons, and those are the procedural grounds that I spoke about earlier, where you show that the arbitrator has taken money, fraud, bribery, or you show bias, or you show that there is failure of natural justice, or you show that he's gone beyond his scope, jurisdiction. So those are the 4 grounds on which you can challenge an adjudication decision. You can't appeal it in the sense that you can't say that on the substance that he had before him, he has come to an error in terms of calculation, or he has gotten the law wrong. Those you can't challenge.
Can you, as a beneficiary of that decision, can you apply to court to make it to confirm that decision?
Yes. So what happens when an adjudication decision is out? I, as the party unhappy with it, will apply to set it aside. You, as the beneficiary of the decision, will go to court to enforce it. Enforce it meaning to get the High Court to recognize it as an adjudication decision and as a decision that can be enforced like the judgment of the High Court. Okay, so those 2 applications, my challenge and your application, will be heard at the same time. If I fail, you will succeed. If you fail, I will succeed. That's it. 2 sides of the same coin.
Okay, I think we have learned quite a bit from Julian's analysis and the cases. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Ong Yushin of Chambers of Yushin Ong to give a bit of insight on architects' practices as well as insurance.
Yes. Okay. Good afternoon. Never easy to be the last speaker. I hope you are still awake or hungry enough to be awake. And be fair to me, you're giving so many questions, give some to me as well. I hope you get some questions. But as Julian said, no 2 lawyers are going to give you the same answer. Right? Just before I start to answer the DLP issue, my view is that DLP, defect liability period 24 months, is an issue of the developer. The presumption is on the developer to repair any defects that are brought to his attention. Limitation at 6 years, as Julian said, 6 years from the damage or from the fault. But we also have a 6A now, section 6A, which is 3 years from when you find out about the fault. So is that clear? So for latent defects, even if the contract was finished 20 years ago, if you find out about the defect today, you get Anthony to come and say, 3 years from then, from his you can sue. Okay? I'm doing some cross-marketing here. Okay, I will try today to do 2 things. 1, I will try to keep you guys awake. 2, I will try not to make it too technical or legal. But if you want more technical or legal basis to what I'm saying, you can always, after this talk, or ask now, raise up your hand, and ask me now as I speak, rather than at the end of when I speak. I prefer that. Okay, so it's more of an engagement rather than you sitting down and hearing me talk, and then at the end of the day, raise up your hands. And also, as lawyers, we are not as kind as Anthony. If you ask me after today, no free advice, I'll send you a bill together with the answer. Okay? All right. Now let's start. Today, I would like to talk about two topics. When I started construction law some time ago, once upon a time, my client in Penang, who I learned construction from, told me one word or one sentence. He said, you must know this if you're doing or going to do construction law in Penang, which is Hao Kam Kiam Liang. Okay, which is curi kerja, kurang benar. The most contractors, or it is something that plagues the industry. Now, where does that leave the architect? Today, I'll be talking about it. The first part of it, as Anthony and Julian said, when you say see you in court, it's not necessarily see you being sued or come as a witness. What I'm going to talk about is see you as suing you in court, all right? Or getting sued in court, or you suing someone. So my topic will be more on that. That's the first part of professional liabilities. The second part is about fees. I will try to cover as much as I can on that. But I think that one of you guys are more of an expert than me because it concerns your own pocket. Now, I got this from the PAM FAQ, and this is something just to check here. How many of you are insured above 1 million? How many of you are insured at all? Not at all, sorry, not insured at all. Okay, good. I was shocked to learn that architects do not have a mandatory insurance policy. Lawyers, we don't have our insurance policy, we don't get our license. Architects, you all are licensed every year, you have your CPD points, but you are not required to be mandatorily insured. Am I right? I think architects here. And I'm very, very shocked. So, I got these AR cover FAQs. I'm not selling insurance. In fact, insurance people hate me, and I hate them, vice versa, for various reasons. But please, if you can bring back anything from my talk today, get yourself insured. Okay? Thank you. Now, it's PI, we call it insurance PII, Professional Indemnity Insurance. What is it? And this is not something I wrote, this is from your own pertubuhan. I'll just leave it here for a while. It essentially covers whatever you have done wrong or done which was not wrong but was found out to be wrong later. So, as you know, and Anthony used the word errors of omission, no. Not instant oriented, errors of omission. And most insurance companies, I think the one provided to you guys is a full retroactive cover. It means it protects for all works done in your firm. And as you know, most claims come not during the project, it comes many years after the project. So it covers that. And it is a claims made policy, meaning that once a claim, you know the circumstances of a claim, there is a dispute, there is someone saying, look, you have fraudulently certified this, I'm going to see you in court, but through WhatsApp. So what do? You notify your insurance company. You don't wait until the formal notification comes in. And I think your policy has a criminal prosecution cover as well. I'll tell you why it's important after that, because whatever you do may have a criminal implication. Not only a civil implication in court, may have a criminal implication. Two things. One, criminal implication to the world at large, meaning if you either design or do something wrong and it causes something, an injury, for example. That's one. The other one is if you were to flout the Architects Act. I think you are very familiar with that. That may be a criminal issue as well. And your policy do cover that. And what I mean by do cover that, it's not that they will send an insurance agent to jail in your place, but they will pay for your legal fees. And what does it protect? I think it's very clear there. What is important here that I saw from an FAQ is the number 3, bullet 3, that it protects you and your firm against any claims arising from acts by consultant, sub-consultants, contractors, subcontractors appointed by your firm. So not only does it cover you, as just now Anthony, I think you were saying about the engineer and the architect arguing against each other, if someone were to sue you and the engineer is parked under you, you can claim as well. And as Julian, which I'll talk about the case restart later on, your bill to your client covers your engineer's fees, right? Or you will issue up a separate bill, but basically, whether you talk about, I don't know, but how you do that, but basically you're billing for an engineer as well, so that covers it. Now, when we talk about being sued in negligence, right? Julian said something about the architect saying, I have a duty of care. I don't know what is it, blah, blah, blah. You are not expected to know. If you take home anything today, I will try to teach you guys basic law knowledge. What is the duty of care? And so on and so forth. So every person on earth can be sued, also professionals such as you guys. And if you put it in one sentence, negligence or tort comes from liability which occurs from a breach of a duty that you owe to another. I hope not too complicated. Basically, it comes from if you have breached something, breached a duty that you owe to another. And as we have said, negligence is broken down into 4 parts. The first part, as we learned in law school, is actually duty of care. But I like to see it from this angle. It comes from damage, duty of care, breach of duty, and causation of damage. So whenever you face a situation, if you are sued or someone says, I'm going to sue you in court, look at it from these 4 principles, 4 elements. Was there a damage done? Basically, if there was no damage done, you cannot be sued. Ends. The question ends. And I will come to a case later. I think Julian talked about it just now, L3. If there is no damage that has happened yet, you cannot be sued. Okay? Don't worry about it. If there was a damage, you then ask yourself whether you owe that person a duty of care. And now this is important to know, as what Julian had said earlier on, when someone were to ask you, do you owe a duty of care? Do you owe a duty of care to a purchaser if you are the superintending officer in the HDA contract? Yes or no? No? Is that right? You don't owe a duty of care? Yes? You owe a duty of care? Okay, nobody wants to answer me. But it all depends. I'll tell you why. But essentially, duty of care is where your actions is so proximate, it's so close that it will affect another. The simple one is a contractual duty of care. That's very simple between you and your client. The developer appoints you, you owe that developer a duty of care. Do you owe a duty of care to the main contractor just because you don't have a contract? My answer is yes, you do. You do. There are cases that says you don't. But in my view, it is situational. In fact, I will talk about law and law architect case, which I'm sure a lot of you are aware of. That case says that you don't owe a duty of care to the purchaser. I think there are cases where you do owe a duty of care to the purchasers. And I'll argue on that. So you need to know yourself first whether you assess for yourself whether you owe a duty of care to the person suing you. The second part the third part comes from whether you have breached that duty of care. And whether you breach that duty of care, the test in England and all Commonwealth countries, and it's trickled down to Malaysia, is very simple. It's what another reasonable architect would do or would not have done. Simple. So when you face the situation, you ask yourself, will Anthony do this? Maybe. Would Datin do it? No, then don't do it. Simple as that. And there is no distinction between a junior architect and a senior architect, just for you to know. In law, we don't recognize whether you are a junior or a senior. If you are registered, you must practice as a reasonable profession would have. So if you have done something wrong, then there's a breach. And finally, what you have done must have caused the damage. Remember, I started with damage. That's why I started with damage. Damage, duty, breach of duty, causation. 4 things. Just no 4 things will do. And if what you have done had caused the damage, and this comes arguable, then you are liable for negligence, and you will thank yourself for having insurance. If you don't have insurance, that's where you have to pay out of your own pocket, you're in trouble then. Now let's go back to the start of damage. No actual loss, no suit. So I'm going to go through a few cases with you at any time. You can stop me. Also, if you want a real citation and the whole grounds of judgment, if you want, you can ask me and I can send it to you together with my bill. L3 Architects, as Julian has said, I'm keeping it brief. It's a patent again contract. Developer, main contractor, they got into a dispute. Main contractor, Chao Ha, angry at the developer, sued architect. Because architect allowed the set-off. And the architects were saying, the contractor was saying that, look, you as an architect, you were negligent, you should have set off, you shouldn't have. Now the law that finally came up, and it was affirmed in the Court of Appeal, was that in the patent contract, as Julian has said, there is a mechanism there, you take it up against the developer. The main contractor take it up against the developer. But the point being made here is no damage, no case. They have not, the main contractor has not suffered damage yet. Architect has only certified, but has he been out of pocket of 750,000? No, because he can still sue the developer can still sue him. I mean, he will still be challenged in arbitration. So when you have suffered no actual economic loss, there is no case. And also a very important point in L3 Architects that if you want to take back, is find a good lawyer like Julian was the lawyer for L3 Architects. So that is one of the most important points. And when now we come to another example, under duty of care and breach of duty, and indeed, and here I would like to talk about the low and low case. I think most of you know it, but I think there was many talks on this topic as well. And recently there was a Batu Kemas case. The Batu Kemas case was a TNB substation issue that went all the way to the federal court and also confirmed the position in low and low. And the position in low and low, simply put, is a 3-stage question which you have to ask yourself. So earlier 4, and this is 3. So having your mind this way when you deal with it is much easier to process. Whether there was reasonable foreseeability in the actions to the fate of the claimant. For example, for example, Anthony said, if there's a design issue, and you shouldn't have designed the curb to a certain height, and you design it that way wrongly, negligently. 3 years down the line, someone hits it, falls down. When you fall down, holding hot water spill up, get someone else. Can that person sue you? Cannot, because it's not reasonably foreseeable that your actions would have caused that injury. And also we talked about the issue of proximity. And number 3, this is very important in low and low, was that whether is it fair to impose such a condition. So the court looked at whether is it fair to impose that duty of care on you. This is a very grey area. The bottom line of low and low, and I just kept it very simple, is that architects do not owe a duty of care to the purchasers, and that's not liable to purchasers. Low and low, as you know, was that the purchasers sued the architect for delay, for assortments of reasons, the CFO and I think it was originally our plan or something like that. The federal court held that purchaser cannot sue. You can sue the developer, you cannot sue the architect. But do not, and I repeat, do not take this as a blanket exemption that no purchaser can sue you. I go back to the question of whether is it reasonably foreseeable or not. Say, for example, you certify a building, you have your G forms and whatever. You certify it knowing that one or two of those forms are fake. And your developer says, hey, do it, man, I'm dying here, LAD coming in, please. And put a whiskey on the table or parang on the table. Whiskey, parang. Big one. What are you going to do? You certify it. Can the purchaser sue you if something happens? I think yes. Because it's reasonably foreseeable. It's reasonably foreseeable. Again, not like low and low. And I say that low and low is also situationally factual. And where I got this from, if you look at Help 4D, I just leave it up here for you to look. Is that it says, we are of the view that the programmer and resource facility has not been satisfied as architects for the project. They went on the merits of what happened, the layout plan. They went on the issues of the contractual duties of design of the architect. And in the circumstances, it would not be reasonable to impose a detailed respondents. To go into a detailed inquiry of the Act. This is to go into a detailed inquiry of developers' obligations, for these are matters which are exclusively in the developer's scope of duty. So it was situational to this, that the architects was not found to be liable. For example, HTA contracts, and it's a case I've done, HTA contracts, you do know that if you have an amendment to your plans, you need purchaser's consent. You all know that, right? Most developers have it pre-signed. It's wrong, but they have it pre-signed. They get purchasers to sign. I agree for any variation. I buy a bungalow, you give me a atap house. I pre-sign, agree. But do you as architect know whether the developer has done that or not? You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. So to err in abundance of caution, you know that you have to do something. And I agree fully with what Julian said, document. You want to do it? Tell the developer. Okay. Don't show me, tell me. Tell me that you have already obtained the consent. Developer will sign you a letter, give it to you, you put it in your record. If you're ever sued, you show that. Not only, I don't have to check. Developer told me to do, I believe the developer. That's it. I have no reason to doubt the developer that they have already obtained consent from purchasers. That's it. I issue the CCC. But if you didn't do that, and you issue the CCC when there's something different in the plan as compared to the approved building plan, original layout plan, what happens to you? You can be sued. Okay, again, this was situationally factual. I say 41 as well. For this reason alone, you see, these are operative words to the grounds. Don't take it as a blanket issue. And yes, if you look at 82 in low and low, paragraph 82, this is what the federal court held as well. I don't have to read up everything, but I just want to read up this part. It says, nevertheless, we must reiterate that a claim for negligence must be brought within the scope of duty of care. The recoverability of claims from pure economic loss in negligence cases is dependent on the facts of individual cases. So it is not open and closed, it is still open. And yeah, this is what I've just said. The examples I've just said, if you sign a form, etc., it is still open, you still have to be careful. And I give you another example where courts have tacitly recognized negligence of architects. This case, Dr. Sujok Yang, Mrs. Brooknex, I think she was a former court judge. She sued the architect, and The issue here, although she contracted with the contractor to build her bungalow, or not, I would say her bungalow, there's a bungalow, the court did mention that an architect engineer had a duty to supervise the construction works. But this case was thrown out, not because of a finding of duty of care, but because of the Limitation Act. It was already after 6 years or whatever not. So she lost, the architect won, but not because of the no duty of care. Okay, on issue of duty of care and breach, this case as well, MRCB Builders, this is a rather recent case. Maincon sued the subcon's engineering consultant for negligence in design. This is not architect, but this is the engineer. So get the parties right again. Main contractor had a subcon. Subcon was supposed to design and build the access wall, or whatever technical term, wall, I call it wall. So do the wall. There was a defect in the design. Now the main contractor, of course, faced liability from his employer. He then sued not only the subcontractor, but the designer of the subcontractor. And the decision is that the designer has no legal proximity to the main court, no duty of care is owed. It is not reasonably foreseeable that the main court will suffer damages due to the consultant's actions. This part of the judgment I'm not in agreement with, I don't really agree, but and that the consultant did not voluntarily assume responsibility towards the main court. This passage was, I presume, taken in line with law and law, whether there was a presumption of it, whether you assume, as an architect, whether you assume the duty of care. I don't agree with this, but anyway, this is the decision and it stands till today. But I agree with this. If any, if the main contractor relies on the subcon and not the subcontractor's designer, he has sued the wrong person. He should sue the subcon. It is for the subcon to sue his designer. You cannot leapfrog. Causation of damage, even if there's a damage and even if there is a breach and a duty there, you still must, or the person suing you must still show that your action caused the damage. This is Cooperative for Bodolan Felda, again another very recent case. All these citations, if you want, these parts here, sorry I didn't mention earlier, you can write them down, you can Google them and you will get the whole judgment. Or again, as I say, jokes aside, you can ask me and I can send it to you. These are the full judgments. This is the HTA sales and purchase agreement. Purchasers sued the developer and architect. So slightly similar law and law, but sued both developer and architects, particularly the architect for breach of duties in granting extension of time to the developer, which subsequently resulted in the late delivery of the possession. And the purchaser claimed a conspiracy between the developer and architect. Do not mention the word conspiracy. Here you now have people, purchasers, getting the great idea to say that architects and employees and developers are conspiring together. Real or not, I don't know. How many times do you meet your clients before issuing DOT? You look to yourself and ask yourself. But that people are doing that now. People know, people are saying that, look, you are acting in conspiracy, there's an agreement here. For the developer, so you should not the, I'm not talking about the HTA sales and purchase unit. So let me clarify, thank you. I'm not talking about the extension of time to deliver vacant possession. I'm talking about the extension of time given to the contractor, so the contractor can build slower. So because of that, the vacant possession was delayed. Okay? So just to clarify that. On that question, there's another topic, and I can talk another hour on HDA, extension of time, but just so you know that it's a federal court case that's coming up, I think in July. Julian, I don't know whether it involves from Obata Oba, Prema Bonanza. Whether this totally side of architects, but this was sharing, the federal court will decide whether if your sales and purchase agreement is signed 48 months, it should be 36, right? If you sign 48 months, because the KPKT has given you the developer has already given an extension of time. The law today says that it's only 36. Even if purchasers sign at 48. But recently there was another case that says it should be 48. So there are two different cases now, and this will go all together. It's called the Obata case to the federal court. And this case is so important because it also looks at Ang Ming Lee. I think you all know Ang Ming Lee, right? Whether the HTA can be extended or not. So this case will also decide whether the ruling of Ang Ming Lee and PJD residencies is prospective, meaning anything forward, or retrospective, and whether that decision has disrupted the entire industry or not. And if it has disrupted the entire industry, and I think the first word sentence said by Junior, construction is about time and cost. You said that, right? Yes. And in the Obata case, Ngakoming has signed an affidavit to say that if purchasers wanted to purchase a property and insist on 36 months, when they sign at 48 months, then they should expect that the purchase price increase. The construction is about time and cost. So this is taken in an affidavit by the KPKT. Okay. Sorry, I digress. Back to this issue. It was held that the developer was liable for the delay. Nothing can be done about that. However, the architect was not liable. The letter issued by the architect does not amount to an EOT particular to the delay of legal possession. And in any event, granting a EOT was part of his duties. The performance of the contractual duties of the project architect cannot amount to an overt act in furtherance of conspiracy. So the court held that if you do perform your duty, the presumption is there that you are not in conspiracy. But it doesn't mean that the conspiracy cannot be proven. Conspiracy can be proven if they find the right lawyers, and not only the right lawyers, the right people to give evidence against you. I won't share it while on stage, but there are ways to prove conspiracies. Even if you look at your method and you look at how you do your software, whatever software you're using, and whatever not. If it can be shown, then I truly believe, an architect can be liable for it. Oh, and to sidetrack, now I jump back again, I'm jumping here. In the, Koperasi case is in the Court of Appeal. We went to the Court of Appeal. The word proximity and foreseeability are not found anywhere in the judgment of that case. Why is this relevant? Remember I said low and low, or how we have moved from low and low. The court found that the architect is not liable, not because they don't owe a duty of care, but because of the other reasons that I told you just now. They were just performing their functions as in the contract. But what do we take from this? If we take low and low at the forefront of our minds, immediately purchaser come and sue you. You say, no, I don't owe you anything. I follow low and low. But this case, Court of Appeal, nowhere did they talk about these two words, proximity and foreseeability. So could it say that in HTA contracts, architects provide secondary roles are stated in the SPA and again may be found to have legal proximity? I don't know. I think so. So that concludes my first part of what I'm trying to say. I'm moving quite fast. Coming to the second part now, I'm just sharing with you some cases on money claims. Now, traditionally, and I find it quite funny because this only happens in both our professions. I don't know why. You don't have a lawyer, a doctor getting in trouble. I cut one hand, another GMC 50,000, I cut for you 30,000. Will he get into trouble? No. Only lawyers and architects get into trouble for charging less. What kind of world we live in? But in any event, I'm coming to the point. Under your rules, you you all know that you can only contract with your clients in accordance to this, right? And also you have this, no discount, no discount. How many don't follow? Who dare to raise hand? Nobody dare to raise their hands. But we all know this, okay? And of course, this is collaterally to what we have said earlier on. If you go under as an architect, if you're claiming it as a consultancy practice, you must go under the Architects Act. There are a lot of Sederan Berhads out there, or practices out there, which are not registered consultancy practices. They have contracts which are not under the Architects Act, but they charge by the scale using the code of engagements and the schematic drawings, how many percent, how many percent, how many percent. That contracts have been argued to be illegal in law. Right? I have argued it myself, I have won the cases that is not reported, but those contracts traditionally are illegal contracts. Because you cannot claim as an architect and yet not claim under the Architects Act. That in itself is a criminal action because you portray to be an architect, but you don't follow the Architects Act. But the law has somewhat changed, which I'm coming to today. Sorry, for that. And part of that argument, comes in here. What if you were to do a contract, but your fees are not in accordance to this? Of course, the example that I gave you earlier on is very, very obvious. You don't follow totally the Architects Act, you don't follow your memorandum of agreement and schedules, of schedules. Clearly it's wrong. But what if you follow but you don't follow this? A lot of people don't follow, right? So can the same argument apply that that contracts, because you get a discount, is illegal? They don't pay you? Do you think that happens when you give a discount to your client? After everything that you have done, you gave a discount, your client comes back later and says, I don't have to pay you because your contract is illegal. Do you think in this world something like that can happen? Malaysia boleh, yeah. So you see, and of course this is also part of your, I'm sure you guys are very, very familiar with what you must do and what you must not do. And as I've said just now, these are what people have done before, discount giving, and what are the effects of it. Illegal contracts may be raised against you. Traditionally, today, generally, it is leaning towards upholding the commercial bargain. Meaning that, first example I gave earlier on, if the consultancy practice is not registered with the lembaga, but contracts with the client, sues the client comes and says, no, it's illegal contract. Traditionally, which I've said, I've won the earlier cases many years ago, you can succeed. But today, the law is that, no. If you have benefited from their work, even though they are in default of the Architects Act, you must still pay them first. Whatever wrong they have done will be settled different forum. But you will receive the benefit of their work, you must pay them. In this case, Matrix Concept Central versus Architect Lim Yok Tiang is one of the cases which I have said on that Malaysia boleh. Any kind of human being is there. The client here sued the architect for going below the fees. Padahal bukan lah, discount semua. I also cari makan, I also cari discount. Professional bodies would have interest, and I think one of the cases, later on cases, there's a passage that says it was so, the word used was wicked injustice. I think Lee Swee Seng used that word, wicked injustice. And the court reasoned that any default of the discount rule will be for your own disciplinary action. take its course. Okay, you can be reprimanded, you can be given a warning, whatever. It can even be a criminal offense. Just again, jump back to what I've said. Any breach of the Architects Act, if you look at it clearly, can be a criminal offense. So that is, but it's up to the bodies and the institutions to enforce. But to say that any contract or professional fees on architect which is lower than the prescribed fees on the architect's scale of minimum fees rules would be null and void and enforceable when we could throw the baby up together in the bathwater. This judge is now, it's a federal court anyway. Yeah, but I think going on soon. But now he's still a court of appeal judge, he's using. So he has a very nice way with words, to throw the baby up together in the bathwater. Meaning that you want to cure a small wrong, but you create a bigger problem. And this case was in 2018, he was on the High Court. Recently, Maple amalgamated as well. This case, same issue. Again, architect give discount, kena. Give some more, kena. 2021. And the same argument that was raised by the client was that it's an illegal contract. But laws have changed, times have changed. They can sue. And this was Harvey Development, yes. Arbitration, when you the architect won, you apply to set it aside because of the fees. And this is the one where the court found the developer to be committing wicked injustice, and again, no chance. So go ahead, discount all you want. And 10 what's that here? No, I'll have another slide on that, don't worry. See you next time, come on already. The court, however, observed the architect can be subject to disciplinary action and criminal prosecution by an offence under the Architects Act. Section 15A2 of the Architects Act gives the disciplinary committee fine 100,000, suspend. So if you want to give discount, you just be worried about this. By your pocket, safe. Jokes aside,
Sorry, I just want to kind of weigh on this. Some architects would say, I'm just offering partial service, not a full service. Would that be considered a discount?
The law generally recognizes the substance over the form, and we do that as well. When you want to give a discount, we say we call it provisional disbursements or whatever. However you want to word your invoice, or however you want to word your agreement, if the substance of it is challenged in court or by your disagreement tribunal, you can still be in default. So the general rule is this is the same. I lend you money, but you pay me back 30% per month, but I call it brother loan. Is it legal? It's not legal. It's the along loan. The law is like that. If it's substance over the form, you can still call it partial. Unless it's truly partial, then it's okay. Right? Again, sorry, you can share with us also, you can share with everyone, no problem.
No, I mean, for example, okay, the client has got some, nephew or niece has done the design work. So you say, okay, now, don't charge me for the design because my nephew has done. Okay, so, you charge us for submission, So, submission 15%, I mean, the design 15% is way, so it's actually partial because my nephew's done it.
Yeah, that is very legitimate. Very legitimate. Anyone sitting in the DC that is here? Anyone who has sat in the DC back who is here? Or don't dare say yes and no back. Sorry, Anthony. So I don't know, Anthony, you want to say how would you look at it? Zoop. Okay. But yeah, if you ask me, substance over form, and it's how your disciplinary committee were to look at it. I can tell you for, I won't say a fact, but for our bar council, the discount rule, while it is very, very strongly felt at the bar council, it's not very, very strongly enforced, unfortunately. So, long story short, your money is safe if you give a discount, but still be careful. Same ATSA. By ATSA, the problem was of an architect who signed the plan, but was by that time not a registered architect. Right? If I'm not mistaken.
It's not signing a plan, it's signing letters and certificates.
Sorry, a certificate, not a plan. Thank you. But I think he was a registered architect before, isn't it? No, or he's I think it expired or something.
Graduate architect, but he didn't renew the membership.
Right. So he was before, and who was not subsequently. And even in cases like this, here the architect won a CIPA award. As Jun Liang said, remember, you as architects can claim your fees in CIPA, not only as a witness in CIPA, you can CIPA your client, right? And here they CIPA the client, the architect won, but they applied to set it aside. Yes, this gentleman, you asked what happens to an award. You can enforce an award, or you can set aside an award. It's like for lack of better word, an appeal. I know Jun Liang is not, but for lack of better word, yeah. They tried to set it aside, and the court say no. The court say that it is not an illegal contract to charge a lower fee. And as to the issue of the registration of that architect, the court didn't know what to decide on it. The court said this is a CIPA adjudication. Whether it's a registered architect or not at that time, it's a separate matter altogether. So you can see how courts are leaning towards, however way you put it, they want to hold parties to their commercial bargain. Which I think is good development in law. And as I've just said this now, it doesn't strike down an agreement, but the advice that I can give you, the two advices that I can give you, if any, is that still try not to go too far from your standard forms, conditions of contract. You know, you want to massage it, you want to molest it, or have a bespoke contract, you can, but don't stray too far. And restart is the last case I'm going to talk about before I take any questions. Restart is a case where the architect paid the fees for the engineer. Earlier on, the court decided that you cannot do so, but ultimately, when it went up all the way, the court also looked at the architect rules. Again, I say your conditions of engagement. An architect may be required to engage his own consultants, and if the engagement is approved by the client, the fees which would have been payable to such consultants, if they were separately engaged, shall be paid through the architect. So your own conditions of contract protects you. So don't depart too far from your own conditions of engagement. And again, jumping back to my first part of the insurance policy, if you remember, or if you say you want to push the fault to the engineer or to the engineer's people, remember that you are also billing for the engineer. So how can you say that you are totally not responsible, or there's no link whatsoever between you and your subconsultants? You are linked somehow. Yeah, that's it. I think it's good video time.
Any questions?
Free advice.
Free advice. Junior, better sit down here as well.
Okay, this may be common in our industry. I'm asking on behalf of a friend.
Very common. My friend did that.
Yes. Okay, we have we send a letter of offer to the client, and fees is X, Y, Z. And we proceed to do the work despite the fact that the client hasn't returned the document to us signed. So we do the design, the submission, blah, blah, blah. And then, okay, next things, we know we want to claim for the fees. And first thing, the developer tells us, sorry, we haven't signed the letter of agreement with you yet. That's the first point. Second, your fees of X%, we don't agree. So we're already claiming, right? So that's based on what we offer them. Let's say, example, 10%, another example. So they're saying, we'll pay you 5%. Because we haven't signed the letter.
Not pen the paper yet.
Instead of money, but I said to them, but you already actually signed documents for submission and so on and so forth. So there is an implied contract between the architect and the client. But they said, but we haven't agreed on the figure, 10%, but we do it 5%. How do you resolve that?
Well, I think this goes down to basic commercial litigation principles or contractual principles, where contracts can be confirmed by way of conduct, performance as well, not only in written form. However, the problem that you face here is that in your your friend, the problem that your friend may The problem that your friend may face is that as an architect, you are statutorily bound to follow your code of engagements. So, in that case, it can be argued that there is still no contract in existence and you were just doing work done. And then you go back to maybe quantum merit or whatever principles to say, okay, you can just pay for whatever work you have done, not for per contract or per damages of the contract. Not you again, your friend. Julian, you add on?
Feel free to ask questions for the other speakers. You want to ask Anthony or Julian on the
free.
Right now it's still free.
Yeah, so SIPA, we can take one as well if you have any issues with that.
Okay, now talking about CR and then about this condition precedence. So earlier talk about this EOT, whereby this has to be strictly followed. But however, during the process of CR adjudications, any late submissions, can the adjudicator strike out the submissions?
You mean submissions to the adjudicator?
Yeah.
Or the adjudicator has the power to do that because SIPA number 1 is very strict on timeline. I think as Julian said, you have your 5 days, 10 days, and whatever not.
Yes, it is. But can it be like shows in this way shows that the adjudicator is not being fair?
No.
Like there's a late submissions of let's say 1-2 days.
It has to be applied. Generally now, I think Julian is an adjudicator himself. You can speak how you would deal with something like that. But I've seen, as far as I'm concerned, they are more flexible because we go as an issue of natural justice, and adjudicators are more flexible there. But I don't think this is an issue of condition precedent. Condition precedent is something separate altogether about the EOT. But, yeah.
What about this AIAC? Are they taking the stance right now? Is the wrong stance?
I will let Julian answer that about AIAC, but I think for me, AIAC is just the body which appoints. They don't regulate each particular case of the decision or how the adjudicator deals with a particular request. Say, for example, more time to submit an adjudication response. But generally, from what I know, they are more flexible. Parties are. I'll let Julian answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So the AIAC doesn't interfere once the adjudicator is appointed. In terms of how much time the adjudicator is prepared to give, it's entirely up to the adjudicator. That said, SIPA itself has got strict timelines. And if the adjudicator is very strict with the timelines and doesn't grant any extension, very seldom will the court fall in, unless there are really out of the ordinary circumstances.
It's right.
It's right, because you mentioned a day or 2 days delay, but bear in mind that certain documents you only have 5 working days to respond. So 2 days is almost a 50% extension of time. You know, some adjudicators will grant the extension of time, but subject to various things. For example, subject to the other party being given a similar extension, and subject to he himself being given more time to make a decision. So like I said, if the adjudicator puts his foot down and says go for the time, seldom will the courts interfere. So natural justice only is breached if a person is not given the opportunity to answer. If the person is given the opportunity but doesn't do it within time, that's not a breach of natural justice. That's the failure of that particular person not taking up the opportunity to respond.
Maybe can I just add one point before that thing can ask question? CIPA is so strict on time. There was a case where the adjudicator was supposed to deliver a decision, say by the 4th of March. Don't ask too many free questions, I told you, lawyer are angry. Okay, the adjudicator was supposed to deliver a decision by the 4th of March, say for example. He delivered that decision 4th of March, I think 7 p.m. 4th of March, 7 p.m. and that decision was set aside by the High Court. Because after working hours. That's how strict adjudication timelines are. I think your turn.
Thanks. Yeah, it's on Holland House. Now during inspections, either it's with the contractor or with the house buyer for the defects, what is the acceptable limit of percentage of hollowness of the tile, of the other individual tiles, and beyond which you will ask the contractor to replace?
Okay, I think this is a very important question to every architect. I will ask Datin, can you give her the mic back again? What is your acceptable benchmarking of acceptable hollowness in your company that you have made that decision? Just
20%.
Okay, so if you have said 20% and the contractor has agreed to the 20%, and it is in your discussions and you have agreed, then it is 20% for your project. You have made that decision, and that is, you are the PSP, you signed it off, that is your position. So if another architect says 100%, then that's the architect's decision. So that's why I stipulated that two filings that went out yesterday, including 1 or 2 of my slides. Now, the architect's position in sales and purchase agreement, primarily for housing, you have 2 portions of it. One is that you have the SMP, which you cannot change. And you know the SMP doesn't stipulate how many percent of hollowness. Okay, it just says what the finishes are. But the benchmarking and the specifications of tiling workmanship and tiling materials is in the building contract with you and between you, what you drafted, what you did, between the developer and the contractor. So it has nothing to do with a building surveyor who comes later and use the couple of the balls and start knocking and putting 200 stickers around, because he is not a party to the contract. You understand what I'm saying?
Anthony, usually we don't specify in the contract. Of course, verbally we will say 100%, but we know in real life you can never get 100%.
Yes.
That's why I'm asking for your opinion as a building inspector. What is your standard? What do you expect, 20% or 50%?
Well, for me, first and foremost, you have to look at the nature of the project and the nature of where the hollowness occur. I would not accept any hollowness on door thresholds, right? Say it's a door right along an area where it's high volume, high traffic, obviously if there is a hollowness there, it's going to be a long-term problem, right? But if the hollowness are occurring in small sections of the town and it's located in inconspicuous area of the property, I would say, look, I'm happy to accept it. And I would make the decision, say if I was the PSP, and I will stand by it. And if somebody else comes along and say, look, I put stickers here, and it goes to tribunal, I'll tell the tribunal to say, look, no, I'm the architect. I have accepted this, and nobody else has any say as far as the acceptability is concerned. You know, because it is handmade, it is going to be, you know, it's not a manufactured product, it is handmade, there's all kinds of challenges at the site. So that's the position I would have taken. But if you were to sell a property like in KL for $2,000 a square feet, and you're doing it for high-end marble, imported stones and everything, and you're selling this really high quality properties, I would say that it is not unreasonable for a buyer to come and say, look, no, I want it to be perfect. And I think that, you know, so you can't expect the same for a project of a lesser nature. That would be my
Thank you.
That's the same for glass breakage. You know, now you hear all the safety glass suddenly it breaks. And then, you know, we talk about spontaneous combustion, NIS and all these things. And then when you ask the glass industry, they say, oh, every safety glass has got a certain percentage that it will break. So when you ask them, show me where are these acceptable standards, no one can show you. So, you know, again, you have to differentiate between mythos and you know, what is the norm of the industry versus you as the architect to say, look, no, I cannot tolerate any glass breakage because of safety issues.
Yeah, my question is actually regarding the art service provided by architects. For example, some small developer who is also the contractor, normally they will engage architect just to provide art service for just to submit the plan, and then after that, issue the CCC and get a CCC. So during construction period, they will do it themselves. So my question here is, does architect still liable for the construction failure, or maybe after that claimed by the purchaser that they claim the architect saying that we have not done your work, although our performance is only to provide the design, submission, and also the CCC?
The obligation and the liability arises from the certification that you issue. So it's the CCC that carries with it that liability, even though you did not supervise the works, you did not check the works. So it has nothing to do with whether you check the works or not, but it's the fact of you issuing the CCC. And as I recall it, the whole idea of the CCC is to remove the obligation away from the authorities, isn't it? It was a substitution of the CF. After the whole Highland Towers episode, they moved it to the architect. So the architect or whoever the PSP is going to be, who certifies that the project is completed and is in compliance. That certificate has got to mean something. So if you accept reduced scope, but you nevertheless issue the CCC, you've got to be in a position to back up the CCC.
I think I would just like to widen this question that you brought up. Architects can't have it both ways. If you want autonomy, you want control, we are all complaining about OSC being slow. We are all complaining about all the Napoleons not giving us approvals and so forth. And we say, look, you guys should leave it to us because we sign our life away. But on the other hand, we take a smaller scope of work, we discount the fees, but you still sign our life away. So in Central PAM, we are actually now pushing very hard to the government to go total self-regulation. That means, you know, you don't even submit plans. Like the engineers, structural engineers, just submit structural calculations for information. If the engineers are taking such a huge responsibility, I can't see why the architects can't do it. So I think this is where we're saying, no, this is even saying, look, you know, the construction permits are all under self-regulation. So long you comply with the certain steps of complying with that. So I think this is something that you all need to decide what you want, you know, in a broader context. Sorry, not related to see you in court, but, you know. At 1 o'clock, we'll have to catch a flight.
Okay, one more question, please. One more question. I just want to confirm whether I heard it correctly. If we were to have an agreement not following the scale of fees, that means the contractor or the developer cannot take you to court on that basis.
They can.
Only the Lembaga architect can take action on you. Is that correct?
No, it's not. It's not exactly that way. But the contractor can, and they have tried to take architects to court by not paying the fees, saying that contract is not legal. But so far, in cases that we have seen until today, the courts have not sided with them. The court has sided with the architect to claim that fees, although that fees is subject to a contract which is not really correct. But what I'm saying is that the disciplinary board still has a separate issue and action against that architect.
Only disciplinary board,
yes.
not
Yeah, they cannot say they don't pay you.
I think architects, from today's session, you got to just get it clear. Anybody can sue anybody. Whether they win, whether they lose is another thing. So obviously, yeah. So I think he says to go buy your insurance.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's give a hand of. And the plan will be uploading the slides. You should receive them next week. Okay. Thank you for your attendance and also thank you for the sponsor. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone. Please remember to sign out. And also lunch is provided at the Moya Cafe there. If you have any questions like Anthony said, just submit it to Melbourne chapter or you can
There's one place,